Welcome to Journey Through the Gate, your paranormal portal podcast, as we delve into the many questions and wonders brought on by the supernatural experience. What's on the other side of the gate? Let's find out together. Here I am. How y'all doing? It is so nice to be back. I gotta tell you, when you know it's Monday night and you know the people that I'm going to have be able to talk to tonight, and you get excited and you get to see all your friends in the chat. And last night we had such a great visit. We did Sis Joe, we did reincarnation. We went 3 hours on that, and I'll tell you what, it was absolutely... Was it not fantastic? I mean, we had such a good time. Donnie was bringing the history, and we watched all those wonderful nostalgic clips and the patent clip and everything else. And I'll tell you what, it was just absolutely fantastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in Steve, because you know it's Monday Madness. So let me bring in my wonderful co-host who actually looks like he dressed the part tonight. Here he is.
Howdy,
Here he
friends.
is. Hi, honey. How are you doing?
Doing great. Back from my triumphant return from Squatch Fest on Saturday. Had a good time up there in Longview, Washington.
Did you catch any squatches?
I did not, but I met some really nice fans and people actually coming up to me to recognize me. One little girl told me, like, I recognized your voice. I knew that was you. I listened to you all the time. I gave her a book. I gave some books.
Oh, gosh, it made her day.
So, hey, Katie, if you're watching.
Oh, that's what. Hey, Katie, how you doing? And we're supposed to wake up Ann. Wake up, Ann. Every few minutes, I'm supposed to yell, "Wake up, Ann," so she doesn't fall asleep.
And Palmer,
I'll tell you what, if you fall asleep during this show, I know Steve's voice will make you, but you know,
I've been accused of it before, but I'm usually looking at something on my phone or doing something, trying to dig up some last minute details. I've never fell asleep. Also like to say hey to my new friends, Thula and Richard, who are tuning in tonight from Durham, North Carolina.
Well, hello and welcome.
Hello,
and welcome all you wonderful people here. You are going to absolutely love this chat. Let me tell you a little bit about this chat. It's filled with gatekeepers. And if you're new to the show, gatekeepers can mean many things. Our animals are gatekeepers, kind of our hearts, and, you know, are there to comfort us. And we're also there as light keepers to comfort and help other people trying to get through on their journey. And we're all on this big wonderful journey together. So I've got my gatekeepers here, everybody in the chat. This is the best chat you're ever going to I challenge you to find a better one on YouTube. So
good people.
Oh my gosh.
And
my take care of each other.
Midnight show, a lot of the same people watch my show too, that comes on at 8 Pacific time.
It's like a tribe that goes around from one place to another, and we all, hang in. It's wonderful.
And Ciscoites.
And so we have the most wonderful mods and everything else. Hello, Gray. Hello, Jackie, darling. How you doing? She's already slinging the bacon here. Hi, Anne. Mermaid, our wonderful mermaid. Hello, darling. How are you? I love her so much. She always puts the most wonderful pictures on Facebook. She's just absolutely beautiful. Blue, how you doing, Blue? We're in Blue's territory tonight, so I hear from the comments, Steve. He said this is his home state of Tennessee hauntings. Hey, and Edna, hi, darling. How you doing? Davy Jones Locker is with us. Terrific. You see anybody in there you want to say hey to?
Let's see. You scroll through. I have to lean over here so I can see it. Davy Jones Locker's here. Carol XO, good to see you, dear. Uncommon Belief 21. Chris Jarvis here. Sir Brian Bowden, how you doing, sir?
Hey, sir.
Always good to see you,
Mr. Bowden.
I think you got everybody else. And Edna's here.
Carol, how you doing? Carol XO to you too,
missed
darling.
Anybody, it's not anything personal. Donnie Cho's here,
kisses.
of course. Unseen
Jackie
Paranormal
Canella
podcast.
She's already throwing up the gatekeeper gear. She must have heard me say I was going to play the vid tonight. That's the last piece of business I've got to do, Steve, before we introduce our guest.
I'm ready to kick it. I've been so excited all day about this.
Our wonderful guest has sent us a fantastic video, but before I play that one, I'm going to throw this one out there. Like I said, all of the stuff from this, any of the little bit that they give you. I don't even know how much you get on a t-shirt, Steve, to be honest with you. But it all goes to help pay for StreamYard and everything else.
Yeah,
I promise you that. So
my merch goes to the channel, and the rest of it goes to charity.
Yep. Oh gosh, I don't have it. I'd like to get up to the point where I could do charity.
Give it to the Cisco Foundation.
I would. I would. So here we go tonight, I think. Yep. It's our gatekeeper gear. And you know what? Somewhere around here I've got a tea. I've lost my cup full of hot tea. I bet you Uncommon Belief might bring it around the corner, though, if I ask really nice.
I've got one of these that No Justice, No Peace.
Oh, I love that so much.
For Christmas. It's the book cover for the book we wrote together, indeed.
That's our book. I love it. And you know what? I if you didn't hear me say it, I got a hoodie for my birthday with my favorite one of these on there, and that's the one where the logo is in the gravestone. Mm-hmm. I just love that one.
Yeah.
I like them all. I like them all, but there's enough there for everybody to pick. And lots of other designs as well. You can get just the logo and stuff like that. I really appreciate you going to look. I know they're having a sale right now, and I think they've upped their quality, Steve, because I joined them about 4 years ago, and then I laid off a little bit and then came back, and everything seems to be great. It has gotten a lot better.
We started out with Teespring on Missing Persons and Mysteries, went over to another merchandiser, and then ended up going back to Teesprings. Like you said, the quality improved. They've got a lot more options as far as you can put your stuff on now. Mm-hmm. It's just really good. I've got T-shirts. I've got a hoodie. I've got a hat. All kinds of stuff.
It's good stuff.
I'm really happy with the quality.
Thank you. Ask and you shall receive. And there it is. Magic from the other side of the moon. All right. So without further ado, I absolutely love this video. And I got chills when he sent it to me. And I think that... you know, Steve, we know a lot. I don't want to say a lot of podcasts or a lot about podcasts. That's not what I mean. When you choose a podcast, everything has to be, it's like the Goldilocks syndrome. Everything has to be just right. The voice, the subject, the way it's put together. If you're watching video or you're just listening to audio, the sound is everything, right?
Quality and the quantity, too.
Absolutely.
The regular releases. Mm-hmm. People will start looking forward to it, and if you're not there, they'll leave you and go somewhere else.
Right. The timing, absolutely, be consistent, but it's also, I think, the quality. You can hear the heart in some of the podcasts, and we have so many talented people in our chat, in our family, in our subscribers and members and things like that, and we're members of theirs, but it never ceases to amaze me how talented a lot of our friends really are, and tonight we have one. So without further ado, I would love to bring on this video, and then you're going to introduce our lovely guest. So here we are. Get a load of this.
If you're a fan of the paranormal, then you probably heard stories about the well-known haunts and legends of Tennessee. From the haunting of Tootsie's Orchid Lounge in Nashville, Elvis's ghost in Graceland, the Bell Witch in Adams, or the very Civil War spirits that roam Chattanooga, among many others. Numerous books have been written, and information is easily found on many of these places by a simple search on the internet. As native Tennessean, I grew up hearing these stories and more, but what has always fascinated me is the stories that most people have never heard. A lot of small towns have a rich history, and the stories keep that history alive. The subjects of many of these legends and haunts could have been forgotten, but their stories live on through folklore and maybe even personal encounters. We're going to take a tour through West, Middle, and East Tennessee to explore some of the fascinating small town haunts and legends. Some of these stories you may have heard, and many you have not. Tennessee is full of these tales and is rich with storytelling from the Mississippi River to the Appalachian Mountains. I want to continue the tradition of storytelling and maybe teach a few things about history along the way. Maybe some of these tales will even help validate some of your own experiences.
Wonderful, right,
Indeed,
Steve?
that's a great video. I've been to so many of those places, too. I grew up in East Tennessee myself, and some of those haunts were my haunts.
There you go. Well, introduce them in, and I'll bring them in, and you two can go at it. And I'll just sit here with two Southern boys.
Another East Tennessee fella here from a little ways on up the holler, Eric Freeman Sims. How you doing, Eric?
I'm good. How are y'all?
This is great. This is great. Yeah, welcome, Eric. Just like I said, you can hear the heart when you really care about something. I think it comes across, doesn't it, Steve?
Oh, indeed. The passion that he's got for it, the quality, the production value, subject matter, everything is there. He's got like the perfect podcast.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, Eric.
So I've been an investigator and researcher, mainly into hauntings, but into the paranormal for 25 years since I was a teenager. And I started out long before the TV shows back in the 90s, going out with my friends to cemeteries and even sneaking into some places, even though I don't condone trespassing. But sneaking in some places, just trying to figure out, what's beyond us. And I think kind of what kicked me in the rear to get into it and to actually go out and seek it was my father dying when I was 14. And so that kind of got me more, curious about what is beyond us, what happens after us. But I've had experiences since I was a kid. My first one was when I was 8 years old. I woke up out of a dead sleep, sat straight up, and saw a full body apparition in my doorway. And as a kid, it scared me, so I jumped up, turned the light on, slammed the door, and that's the first one I can remember. But yeah, it's just been experiences my whole life.
Wow.
That seems to be the age that it happens to a lot of people. I was 6 when I saw my first full body apparition. Had something that I couldn't see that chased me through the woods when I was 8. So yeah, 6, 7, 8, maybe a little bit earlier than that. That seems to be the age that people that are experiencers and things, that's when it begins to take notice of you and reveal itself to you, and then spends a lifetime like Cisco and I have looking for, not looking for answers, but looking for the next set of questions.
Yeah. That is so true. You're not finding any answers. Yeah, it's always more questions if you do get close to an answer.
But
for sure.
The thrill's in the hunt for me.
Yeah. And I started a couple years ago, I started the Unseen Paranormal podcast just because I wanted to talk to people myself and just have a normal conversation, not saying anything about any other podcast out there. But some of the bigger ones, to me, they've gotten more into the para-celebrities. And I like to interview everybody. So I have some para-celebrities on my show, but I like to interview individual paranormal groups as well, because I think their stories are just as interesting, if not more, sometimes.
Yeah. An experiencer is an experiencer. That's the way I look at it, too.
So true. And there's a lot of commercials, Eric. There's a lot of, and it's understandable. I mean, just think about what I hearken back to, when my kids introduced me to Coast, catching it on the radio, and you have to at a certain time. And of course, it's in the middle of the night, and you've got everything in between. And really, when you boil down the stories, it's, what do you get? About an hour and a half of actual dialogue between. I mean, it's hard to stay up and listen to that, especially when got kids are going to school the next day. I used to mine got in trouble for listening, but Mom, it's Art Bell, It's like, okay. It's aliens, okay. But I get it. And I think it's the podcasting world is really opened up so much, because you and I and Steve and people could just go ahead and try to figure out, how to do this, and then get in there. And like you said, get these people, get the stories nobody's hearing. That's
right.
And
I go and look for authors as well who aren't as well known, and just because they don't have a big publisher, or their books aren't ginormous on Amazon. Not any offense to Steve, because Steve's been on my show 4 times, and I'm very appreciative. But I like to find these other authors who've written great books and have great stories as well, and give them a platform. And I'm so happy that the podcast has done well, and I have that platform to give.
So I don't want to interrupt you, but a friend of ours out of very far away has popped in here, and I wanted to say all my love to Kiwi Patriot and Pseudonym, and you guys keep standing. I love you. You got my whole heart with you. I had to do that. I had to pull the podcast over. I am so sorry. They're fighting for their freedom, big time.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah. So I love you. Much love your way. Lots of happy thoughts and energy. Well, now, do you want to tell Steve? Steve, we've got a slideshow Eric has sent me, so my job is just going to be to pull up pictures. He's going to tell us some stories, and you guys just feel free to go at it.
All right, awesome.
The best thing I can tell you about Tennessee is it's absolutely gorgeous. I put up today a promo vid, and I got a little drone footage, some pictures thrown in there, and everything to put up pre-show, because I wanted people to remember how absolutely gorgeous.
And
This
that
state
music
is.
you had was apropos and perfect
Thank you.
for what you had there.
YouTube Music Audio Library. So would you like to do that now? Because I want to give all the room to the stories you guys are going to, be triggering with these pictures. Are you comfortable starting there, Eric, with just slideshow? And all right, let's have at it. Welcome everybody in, and thank you so much, Mods, for handling everything tonight. I appreciate you. Well, here we go. This was one of the first ones you sent me.
Yeah, Carton Plantation is kind of where I got my start as an investigator, talking about sneaking into places.
Oh, wow.
We used to sneak on the grounds when I was a teenager and had many of experiences there myself and heard lots of others. Back when I was in high school in the 90s, it was kind of the thing to do if you're in high school, was to sneak in and see a ghost at Carton Plantation. And it's known in folklore in the Middle Tennessee area where I live. It's in Franklin, Tennessee, right outside of Nashville. And it's very much known in folklore around here, and it's called one of the most haunted houses in Tennessee, if not in the entire country. But a lot of people outside this area don't know about Carton Plantation. It's a beautiful place. They do weddings. They don't really embrace the paranormal. Last I heard, the director was threatening to fire the tour guides for talking about the paranormal. So I think last year they might have done a haunted lantern tour 1 or 2 nights, but otherwise they don't do paranormal. They don't let investigation teams, anything like that, come in. But it's a beautiful house with an amazing history that dates back to before the Civil War. It was built by Randall McGavick, and him and his family immigrated to the Middle Tennessee area at the end of the 1700s, 1796. And he got into politics in Nashville when they moved to Nashville area. And he actually became the governor of Tennessee from 1824 to 1825. And then he built, with the help of enslaved labor, Carton Plantation in 1826. It was finished. But it was it was a farm, and they raised thoroughbred horses, and they mainly raised food for themselves. It wasn't like a cotton plantation. They did have enslaved people there, and the quarters are still standing.
Mm-hmm. But here's a picture of them right here, hon. I put them like this so you could see the differential. I mean, there's the slave quarters, and then you've got but it looks, I mean, I'm not to say anything about slave, but it's cozy. I'm so glad somebody got that. They
cozy.
Probably thought
there's
that
people
they were
that had it a lot worse for sure.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, but the drastic difference between the two, there's your grand staircase. I mean, that puts things into perspective. But there you go. Go ahead, hon. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
And from all accounts, with Carton Plantation, the enslaved people were treated very, very well there. It wasn't like you see on some of the movies and that type stuff. But the house was taken over by Randall McGavick's son in 1843. But it would see the Battle of Franklin kind of on its front lawn, and would become the main hospital for the Battle of Franklin. And the Battle of Franklin has been called the 5 bloodiest hours in the Civil War. And it just saw lots of bloodshed. It's one of many houses in Franklin that were hospitals. Upstairs, there are still bloodstains, huge bloodstains in the wood floors. And what I found interesting about the bloodstains is that you can see like this oval cutout where there's no bloodstains behind there, and then there's a round circle where there's no bloodstain. And what that's from, they say it's from where the surgeon stood, and his plastic or rubber apron didn't allow any blood there where he was standing, and the round circles where the bucket was sitting.
Oh wow.
And they reported
man.
They did so many amputations, and they actually did them up on this picture on the left hand side, up in one of those rooms, because the sun came in there and they had light, but they did it up in the second story. And there were reports that they did so many amputations that the body parts stacked to the second story window.
Can you imagine? I was wondering if that story went with this house. I wasn't 100% sure, but again, you just imagine the magnitude of the horror of that.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the bloodstains too. There's quite a few bloodstains all over the place. We have some here in Monmouth, the Battle of Monmouth, right up the street. And same thing, bloodstains on the pews, and never come off. And if they do, they come back. One of those kind of, no, we won't be silenced kind of thing. So amazing.
And that's kind of the story with Carton as well. And it was named Carton because that's where the family came from in Ireland when they immigrated, when they came over to the United States. So it's harking back to where they came from. Because people always want to know, well, why isn't it, McGavick Plantation or whatever? But 14 generals would die in the Battle of Franklin. 14 officers, and
Whoa.
4 of them would be put on the back porch, which is on the other side of the house. This is the front of the house, and you actually enter from the backside, and the backside is a 2-story, full-length covered porch. And there's been reports of you can kind of see the side of it there. There are reports that one of the generals, still walks back and forth, and you can see a shadow.
Oh,
and
man.
I've actually seen that because we used to, on the other side of the house, there's a cemetery, and for a long time there was a golf course that was pretty much took over the battlefield, and that's where we get on the property. We park at the clubhouse for the golf course, and it's about probably 150 yards from the house across this field. But we would zoom in back in the 90s as much as we could with a camcorder. And quite a few times you can see a faint shadow of what looked like somebody walking on the back porch at night. There's all kinds of reports in this house. There's a disembodied head floating around the kitchen.
I've had run-ins with those, haven't I, Steve?
Yeah, sure did.
I've had heads thrown at me. It's not a pleasant thing. But that's an amazing. How many acres? Do you have any idea?
Right now, I think it takes up 10 acres.
Yeah.
It used to be like 1,400.
Yeah, hundreds and hundreds. I can imagine. Absolutely. You can't beat houses like that. It's just absolutely gorgeous. I couldn't live in it because of the history and the energy. I think it was Lindsay that said, Grey Wolf, that the energy left behind there is overwhelming. It's got to be, Steve. Yeah.
Dark and bloody ground that they talk about. The blood cries out from the ground. There's plantations like that all over Middle and East Tennessee where those things like that happen. I've got a Wheaton plantation in Sevierville. You've got Rotherwood Mansion in Kingsport. Almost the same stories told over and over, and not just in Tennessee. You go on up like into Virginia, the Martha Washington Inn in Abingdon, Virginia, right across the street from the Barter Theater. They used that as a field hospital during the Civil War, and they stacked the bodies in the basement till the springtime when they could thaw them, when it thawed out enough that they could bury them. And that place is extremely haunted. But it's just there are places in Tennessee particularly where you can't throw a rock without hitting the site of a battle or a skirmish or some kind of thing there. And that dates back before the Civil War to even Revolutionary times. There's a lot of skirmishes too.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Jackie has a question.
It is actually
here.
A museum now.
There you go.
It's actually a museum now that you can pay to go tour it. And they actually have a museum, a separate building they built that is a museum that has artifacts that they have dug up on the property, and then also artifacts that pertain to the Battle of Franklin. Another interesting thing about Carton Plantation is after the Battle of Franklin, a lot of the dead were just buried on the battlefield where they'd fell in shallow graves. And they were these crude markers that were put up. And just with whatever information they knew about the person, where they were from, what regiment they were with. So the McGavick family, being kind of the prominent family in Franklin at the time, they, along with the rest of the town, took up a collection, and the McGavicks donated a chunk of land. I was talking about the cemetery that we used to come through. They donated this chunk of land, and they paid a guy to go around and dig up the bodies and rebury them on the grounds of Carton Plantation. So now there's a cemetery that is all Confederate soldiers. They are grouped by the state that they were from. And Carrie McGavick actually hand wrote a cemetery book that you can still see when you go there. And they have a copy of it in the cemetery that is laminated so that you can read all the names and know where the graves are. And there are still families who go and put flowers on the graves in November, around the time of the Battle of Franklin. And it's amazing. But the cemetery is also said to be haunted by many people have reported Civil War dress type spirits falling behind them, even talking to them. One person went there after hours and there's nobody else around, but they saw this person they thought was a reenactor and asked them where a certain grave was. And this reenactor pointed them to the grave. And when they turned back around, there was nobody there.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you think about this place, Eric? Do you think that it's much like a lot of the battlefields Steve and I have become familiar with? I mean, Fredericksburg, Franklin, Antietam, Shiloh, Gettysburg, on and on. Bull Run, Manassas, whatever you want to call that one, back and forth. What do you think about this particular place? Do you think it's residual? Do you think the ghosts are intelligent? Do you think it's time slips and, imprints? Or do you think it's a mixture in this place?
I think it's a mixture. Based on the reports, there are definitely intelligent things there that interact with people. The general that walks back and forth on the porch, that just kind of happens no matter what. Also, there's reports of a woman in white who people think is Carrie McGavick, who was the lady of the house when the battle happened. Actually, and I've seen her pull the curtains back and poke her head in the window, like looking to see who's on her lawn. But that's been reported many, many times. So that would be more residual. One of the famous stories that would be more along the intelligent haunting is of this porch that you see right here. This is actually the front of the house.
Okay.
And a lot of people think the other side with the big porch is because that's how you come in nowadays. But this is actually the front of the house. Okay. There's a gentleman who found out that one of his ancestors died at the Battle of Franklin. Well, he showed up after 5 o'clock in the summertime, and they were already closed for tours and all that. There's nobody there. Well, he walked around the side of the house from the back where you park to that front small porch, and he saw a man getting on a horse. And as soon as the man mounted the horse, the man and the horse disappeared.
Oh, wow.
Well, then he noticed there was another Civil War soldier sitting on the porch. And he's like, what did I just see? And that soldier told him, oh, well, he got his horse shot out from under him just like me. And the guy was like looking around like, what? And he looked back and that soldier was gone. And he was the only one on the property. Yeah.
Wow. Steve, do you think it's the energy to make it, I'm listening to Eric's story, and what's popping into my head is like Gettysburg, like, oh gosh, I know Antietam has spots like this too. I can't speak on any of the other battlefields, but I'm sure they do if we started to look into it. Seems to have those kind of manifestations that are so lifelike, conversations being handed, apporting items through history, such as in Gettysburg being handed the the gunpowder cartridge and things like that. The guy actually took it, Eric, to the museum, and they dated it back. So how is this happening? But it seems like in places like this, like the elevator story in Gettysburg, where the physician, that when the elevator doors open up, the physician, it's so lifelike, everything, but he notices the people in the elevator, makes eye contact, and asks them for help. Things like this. Do you think it's the energy? Again, are we talking about quartz? Are we talking about, the stone tape theory? What do you think is going on in places like this?
I think the stone tape theory fits in with this because this house is on a stone foundation, limestone foundation. Okay. And in Tennessee in general, we just have, springs and groundwater everywhere. The slave quarters that you showed, right behind it is a swampy area where a natural spring comes out of the ground, and there's actually a spring house. So there is groundwater running under there, which, with the stone, granite, we got lots of granite and quartz in Tennessee.
Limestone. There's limestone caverns all throughout Tennessee underground, East Tennessee.
Yeah. So I think a lot of it has to do with the stone tape theory. The disembodied head has kind of been reported just kind of going about its normal day, I guess, in the kitchen.
I was going to say going about its business. What kind of a business does a head have without a body?
And then there's some children's spirits that are said to be seen quite often, and they're just kind of playing and going about their day as well when they're seen. They're not really intelligent, an intelligent haunting. And then there's also a little girl that is seen sweeping the kitchen. And the local lore, and there's nothing to back this up historically, but the local lore is that she was being courted by a gentleman who was in love with her, but she wasn't in love with him. She was in love with somebody else. And when he found out, he actually murdered her. And they say that's her spirit that you see sweeping the kitchen floor, but she's always seen sweeping the kitchen floor. So kind of they've done an awesome job at
I love the colors.
Recreating everything. Another interesting
colors
story
are
about this
gorgeous.
place. Yeah, the wallpaper that you see.
Oh yeah, I don't know why it's just so inviting. The picture, the way it's done, with the
Yeah.
of course those beautiful archways that are just so iconic to the South, and it is different, guys. I'll tell you, I've had at least. I was talking to Eric before the show a little bit, like 25, 30 years in both deep South and New Jersey, up north, and I've gotten a taste of both of it, and there's a distinct difference in architecture and things like that. And this is so Southern. This is so absolutely gorgeous. It really is, the colors and everything, and the staunch difference between the slave quarters and the. We were talking last night. I had a past life as a. One of the mediums said you were a plantation owner, and I about had an aneurysm. I was like, "What?"
I would feel more comfortable in the slave quarters. The other, it looks like a museum. I'd be afraid to touch anything or to sit on those chairs.
Right.
That's it. It's like this. Here's real living over here. I've got everything I need. I got a straw bed, more than likely. Probably was thrilled to have 4 strong walls and a fireplace.
Pot to cook in.
Yep, and a pot to cook in, and God love him. I bet you the energy in that is a lot calmer in that room than it is in that whole house. I mean, I just from the person that was probably sitting there, just so grateful to have what they had, and dealing with their misery, as well as all of the Civil War soldiers. I can't imagine what it was like. So many of those southern places, where one minute you're having breakfast, and the next minute, you've got a battle on your front lawn.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing to think about.
And they had wounded soldiers tucked everywhere. You couldn't walk through without wounded soldiers. And the family even gave up all of their bedroom space except for one room where the whole family stayed. And
my goodness.
It was the parents and 3 kids. And Carrie McGavick, they were posh people. They were entertaining Andrew Jackson, James K. Polk, people like that.
Yeah.
And so they were, rich and very well-to-do and very prominent family. But she actually tore all of their linens up to make bandages and tourniquets and stuff. So all of her nice dresses, all of their nice tablecloths and bedding and all that stuff. That wallpaper you see right there, when they went to renovate the house, because the house fell into disrepair because it was part of a farm share from like the early 1900s until 1970, I think, is when the Franklin Historical Trust bought it. But when they did the complete renovation in the 2000s, they did not know that wallpaper was the original. They found a small piece of it up by the attic stairs, and they actually found the French company that originally made the wallpaper is still in business and still had the wallpaper on file.
Wow.
So that wallpaper is from the same company, same pattern that made it back in the 1800s.
How about that? That's incredible. I was so drawn to that wallpaper. I knew there was a story in there. Just naturally drawn to it. But I just think it's absolutely beautiful. I mean, just think about it. If you had like some kind of velvet fleur-de-lis or something, it wouldn't have worked. This just blends so well. It's just absolutely
floor
gorgeous.
Looks amazing too. Is that marble or parquet wood, or what is that, Eric? Do you know?
I'm not sure about that
tile?
one.
Yeah.
There's lots of wood floors in the house, oak wood floors. I believe in the dining room, if I remember correctly, they have parquet wood, and then in the sitting rooms, the office and the sitting rooms are actually carpet.
Yeah.
Which would have been
I've driven by there, but I've never had a chance to stop and go in and look around. But it does give you that feeling when you're driving by. You're kind of looking in the windows to see if there's anything looking back out at you.
I bet you there is. I bet you there is. And I still prefer, as much as I like this wallpaper and that whole look, I'm with Steve on that. I much prefer this one over here. I like the unfinished wood here. And Glenn, that does look like a fireplace.
Tiny little fireplace. I love it.
And this tub is so big, it should probably where you heated your hot water for your bath and doing your laundry. Everything happened in that pot right there. So
that reminds me of growing up. My mom and dad were antique dealers. So in what we call the good living room, it was made up like that. There were marble top tables and fancy chairs and stuff. And I was forbidden. My room was like that. I had my stuff, how I wanted it. And, it's punishment. Sending me to my room wouldn't have done any good. You want to punish me, make me go sit in the good living room.
I was always in my room with a book.
Or go outside. I was afraid to touch anything in there.
with
Yeah.
a Hans Holzler or Ripley's Believe It or Not. Look at this here with Glenn, Steve. My ancestor killed Jeb Stuart in the war.
Uh-oh.
Didn't Jeb get shot by his own guys? Didn't he like stumble on an ambush and
Something
they
like
shot
that.
him? I think it was. I could have my generals twisted, but my Civil War history is not that bad. I think it was. I think he was shot by his own people. I don't know, Glenn. What do you know about that? Let us know. That's incredible. Wow, what a house! What a
Yeah.
bunch of stories in it. Are you ready to go on to the next one, or do you have more on this?
I have.
That's
I have a
incredible
couple more
amount of
stories.
information. Sure, please take your time.
You can hear, and I've heard this myself: gunshots, cannon fire, horses. You can hear people singing on the property. They do weddings, and I was actually out there
Wow.
quite a few years ago for my cousin's wedding. And we had a big tent on the lawn where they did the wedding, and I DJ'd the wedding because I used to DJ weddings. But
Wow.
I had told my aunt, I said, about 10, 11 o'clock at night, you will hear off in the distance what sounds like gunshots, cannon fire. And she thought I was crazy. And I said, all right, well, you just wait. And so we were packing up, and we had to be out there by, I think, 11 o'clock that night. Come about 10:30, boom, you could hear it off in the distance. And I'm like, that is not a car backfiring.
Wow.
That is not anything
Yeah.
like that. And she was amazed. And then one time when we had snuck in there, like I said, I don't condone trespassing. But one time we had snuck up there, we were walking back about 4 o'clock in the morning from the house across that field. That's about 150, 200 yards between the cemetery and the house. And two of my friends are about 10 or 20 feet behind me. And we hear a horse whinny and a horse galloping to my left. And this field is probably about knee deep. They hadn't, it's just like a hay field. And they hadn't mowed it in a while. And so we hear this horse galloping to the left, and we're all like, you hear that? You hear that? And then I feel this cold breeze go through me and can see the grass move in a straight line to the right and still hear the horse galloping whinny. So I guess I had a ghost horse run through me.
Wow. Wow.
Pretty
Now, did
interesting.
you get that? How did it feel? Was it, because I've had similar, not a horse, as far
Yeah.
as I know, but I've had that feeling. It's kind of hard to describe, isn't it? Having
Yeah.
something like that walk through you. How would you describe it?
I would say it's like I don't know, like wintergreen mints, how your mouth
Okay.
feels tingly but cold at the same time.
Oh, great.
Kind of like that
Yes.
with a little more like static electricity.
Yeah, like when you rub your feet on it.
Yeah.
Not a hard one, but those little zaps will get you. But when it happens
Yeah.
all over your body at once, it's kind of weird, And I have also found a difference between a loved one doing it and somebody I didn't know. There's a huge difference. And I don't know what, your imaginations and your mind's chat can do with that, but think about it. When you have a stranger ghost walk through you, or in this case, a horse, and then somebody that you love, because my whole body it was just warm. It was like that feeling when you get in a warm bathtub, an extra warm bathtub all at once.
Yeah.
And that you're enveloped with that, and then it just kind of enveloped me and then just went away at the same. Oh gosh, it's crazy. But the wintergreen mints, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, just
Wow.
that tingly, cool feeling. Yeah, like you get in your mouth. I think with the loved ones, I think it's just that familiar energy, and that's why
Wow.
it's warm and
Yeah.
comfortable.
And there's a lot of love in it. And I think that's like one of those energies that you just can't get away from. When you come with something, come in the same room, or a ghost comes into a room with you that is a loved one that is so ethereal that they're just wrapped in that high energy.
Yeah.
It's a similar feeling as just somebody walking around that's really low vibrational, just kind of scuffling through as a ghost trying to find its way. It's a totally different energy feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That love is a powerful, that whole thing is so powerful. And Glenn said here that was Jackson. It was Jackson and Lawn Street, and Jackson died. Yep. It was the J that was throwing me off, but I was close. I had the right letter. That's fantastic, man. And the horse ran through you. Now, how long ago was that? when you were there?
That was back, I was 16, 17 years old, so back in the 90s.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and there's been reports of ghost horses and men on ghost men on
Gettysburg,
ghost
too.
horses.
It's lousy with it. I mean, it's incredible. We're sitting there in a diner, we're having breakfast, and you could hear the cannons going off. And, you know, all the normal stories. Oh, is there a reenactment going on? You know, you always get that, especially when you're near a battlefield. Nope, nothing scheduled, you know. And everybody there knows when everything is going down, you know. You're sitting.
That happens at a lot of these battlefields.
Yep.
And I've also known people that were reenactors that would occasionally observe people in the reenactment with them that weren't reenactors.
Yeah.
And people are like, who's that guy over there? I don't know. Never saw him. And then they would disappear or they couldn't find him.
Absolutely.
I think the people, the soldiers, the actual soldiers are still fighting those battles in some places.
Yeah.
Here we go. Glenn says, Chris, with the 5th Michigan Cavalry at Yellow Tavern. Huff was severely wounded a short time later and went back home to, is that Michigan?
Huff was the one that shot Jeb Stewart.
Oh, Huff did. Okay. I'm trying to catch up. We've got conversations going on.
He knocked off his mount, and when Stewart went by, he shot him in the side and went through his belly and exited his back just an inch to the right, I think, of his spine. And they got him in an ambulance wagon, and that's probably what helped finish him off there. Can you imagine being split stem to stern like that with a bullet and then thrown in the back?
And then bouncing around in that damn wagon.
Yeah.
If you've never ridden in a wagon like that, oh gosh.
Buckboard.
It's hard to describe. And I can't imagine.
And those wheels, wooden wheels with metal rims, there's nothing comfortable about it.
And the roads weren't exactly paved smooth either. There's big old holes in the ditches, dirt roads, and through and over and under.
I've heard that somewhere, that a lot of people in the Civil War died from not their injuries, but from the operations.
And the infection.
The infections, dysentery. I think dysentery killed more people than soldiers on either side.
Absolutely. They didn't even know to boil water. Halfway through, due to Clara Barton and the Red Cross and women going in there and trying to put together, they were using the same saw to chop off all the legs Eric was talking about, arms and appendages. Same, like he said, guy's just going to stand there and he's doing 200-300 amputations.
Like an assembly line thing, just roll another one up, saw something off, next one.
Infection. They weren't even cleaning, they were washing the bandages, but they weren't boiling them. And they'd reuse the same water and the whole, it's just so gross.
Yeah, but, no hand washing, no nothing.
Right, exactly. And that's the Civil War was when it really broke. Now, there's people in here that's going to know more about it than I do, but just the ins and outs of it was about halfway through. They started realizing that if they just boiled the water, just cleaned the instruments, just used clean bandages, that it made all the difference in the world. By the time it spread, it took so long to get out any information and have that, the whole damn war was over and they kept fighting for 7 more months. That's how long it takes to get the word out. So it took a long time for the word to get out to these makeshift hospitals. I mean, these are basements of, houses and bedrooms, like Eric said. The whole house there was probably every inch of floor had a body on it. Every piece of furniture. And that says a lot for the character of the people of that house, because there was a lot of rich people that had that, kind of air about them that would have had to confiscate the place rather than them volunteering, stuff like that.
And the fact the McGavick family put up most of the money to have those people, dug up on the battlefield and actually put somewhere.
Quite amazing.
Yeah, where their families could come visit them and that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. And the 14 generals, of course, they were taken off to, because they spent the money on that, way different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, it's quite a thing. I'm impressed with the place, and see, I'm looking at pictures. I knew nothing about it, so I appreciate you coming on here tonight and telling us. Are you ready for the next one?
Yeah, let's go to the next.
All right, let's see what we've got next. I've forgotten. Here we go. Well, that's the thing again. That sweet little. Okay, here we go.
Historic Scott County Jail.
Oh wow! Look at that, boy. That was built to last, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Look at that.
It was in operation until 2005, 2006, and in operation for over 100 years in Huntsville, Tennessee, which is out East Tennessee way, Northeast Tennessee. And they built it originally just 2 stories, and then they added the top story, which was for maximum security a few years later, the 3rd story. But it was built to only house 50 people. But it's reported that they at times had well over 100. So way overcrowded. just a lot of, with murderers and everything you can think of, from the early 1900s until the early 2000s when they built the modern Scott County Jail. So just think about, 20 years ago, thinking about that being the county jail.
This was still, it.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah. And it was built to have jailer's quarters as well, so that there were jailers there 24/7. But this is actually a new location that Miranda Young from Ghost Biker Explorations and Dr. Chris Sumner from Solstice Paranormal actually started a company, and they are leasing this from the city of Huntsville and from the county to do a museum, and then they do the paranormal tours in there. So
yeah,
you can go
that's
do paranormal tours.
So great. I was on Miranda's podcast, Ghost Biker Explorations, I think's the name of it, just a couple of weeks ago, and she's really excited about it. And I can't wait to get back to East Tennessee.
Yeah, it's looking at the building, come on, it's got to be haunted. It's all made out of stone. And there's actually I believe there's a creek that runs behind there that is spring fed. So you got the water, you got the stone, and being out East Tennessee, you got more of the granite and limestone and all that, because you're getting into the mountains out that way. But there's an interesting story about a black gentleman who was accused of murder, and he was in the very top floor, and I think he was only in the jail for 24 hours before an angry mob come and took him out of the jail and killed him.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. And there was a sheriff who of course lived in the jail, in the jailer's quarters. He was actually killed out front, right in front of the jail. Somebody killed him.
Now, there's a jail there in East Tennessee. I don't think it's this one. That's more Middle Tennessee, where a guy was looking out the window, and there was a lightning strike, and it sort of etched his image in the glass. Have you ever seen or heard of that, Eric?
I have not. That's amazing. Wow.
I'll have to find where it's. I want to say that's in Loudoun County or Lenoir City or somewhere like that. But it's amazing. But it's nothing supernatural in as much that it's not a haunting or anything. It's just something peculiar with the weather. But the guy was looking out the window in the jail, and the lightning flash made like a picture of him in the glass.
Lindsay says she feels odd just looking at the picture. I did too when I first saw it. I think those stones have absorbed a lot over the years. I really do. I mean, that's like common sense. It goes without saying at this point, the stuff that we know, but even more so than others. There's just something about the architecture on this. I can't quite put my finger on it, but are you getting a creepy vibe from it too, Steve?
Oh, absolutely. Just foreboding. What's a jail? It's not supposed to look like a resort or anything, but it's, with the parapets and the iron bars and everything. Yeah, there's just, you can tell it's got its own presence about it.
Mm-hmm. And Glenn says that it's common where he is that many old county jails actually have the sheriff's residence in the same building. I never even thought of that. I thought about prisons where you have the residents, like say in Alcatraz, they had that whole little town right there. Everybody that worked there lived on that island, at least for a short amount of time. And I've always thought that was kind of creepy, but to live in the same building, that had to be unnerving.
There was another sheriff that was killed in the parking lot in the 70s, and they never found out who killed him. And they think that his spirit still roams the building.
Has anybody ever talked to any of these people, Eric? I mean,
so
communicating?
That's what Miranda and Dr. Chris Sumner are doing now with opening it up to, you can rent it for paranormal investigations, but they also do tours. And they actually are starting a museum where they're collecting patches, law enforcement patches from all over the country. Especially Tennessee. They're trying to get every county in Tennessee, every law enforcement agency. So they have like TBI, they have Metro Nashville. Of course, they have Scott County and the local police there in Huntsville. And so they got all these patches being sent to them. But they have a whole museum that they have, old shackles and things like that, old badges, old keys, things like that they're building. And they're asking people, if they have any of that memorabilia, especially from Tennessee, and they would like to donate it or lend it to them. They're looking for that type of stuff.
Wow. And and Edna said she'd love to see the inside. I highly recommend looking this up. There was a lot of pictures of different people going on tour, like their own tour and taking their own pictures. There was a lot of that. I'm sorry I didn't grab some of them, but what happened was I downloaded so many pictures I forgot which pictures went with what. The jail was easy to tell, but they were buried by so many other pictures. Trying to put this slideshow together, all the mansions started to look alike, Steve.
Yeah.
But yeah, people are
Hello
getting.
to Sandy. Welcome in. Good to see you in the chat there.
Hey, how you doing, Sandy? Welcome in. Welcome in. Anybody else that we missed? Janet's popped in too. Hey, Janet. Jeanette, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Eric.
They've had about 15 or 16 paranormal teams come in and investigate. And they've been getting lots of EVPs, lots of disembodied voices, things like that. One of the amazing pieces of evidence that I've seen is from a team from Dixon, Tennessee that went out there called RKB Paranormal. And you can go look this up on their Facebook page. They have the video. They were inside one of the cells filming, and they were talking. And earlier in the night, they had seen one of the pictures fly off the wall. Well, this time they heard something out in the hallway, somebody talking. So there's only 2 investigators in the entire jail. And in the video, you see one of them pick up the camera off the table, open the cell door, and go out. And as soon as he does, you see the picture fly off the wall. And these pictures are like the historical things. So when you go around, the jail, and they're actually Velcroed to the wall. So this is not like hanging, it's Velcro. So it's not anything that a draft or anything, but you can hear the EVP right before he goes out the door, and it startles him. But they didn't get to catch it on camera earlier in the night when they had heard it fly off the wall, but they caught it this time. And it's a pretty awesome piece of video evidence, a pretty good capture. But RKB Paranormal on Facebook, the video's up there.
There you go.
There's just something about those old jails and prisons and stuff anyway, just the amount of suffering and murder and stuff that went on behind the walls, too. Have you ever been to Brushy Mountain Penitentiary down near Wartburg, Tennessee, Eric?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, they do tours and stuff there. And it's, I think it's Michael Laciano, wasn't it, Cisco, that had those Class A EVPs.
Oh, yeah.
That he had pulled out of Brushy. There was people like swearing at him and all kinds of stuff. And,
He's
I
incredible.
don't think it's the equipment. I think it's him that they're drawn to. Because he gets those kind of EVPs wherever he goes, no matter what equipment he's using.
And there are some people like that out there that just,
like
for whatever reason, EVPs or, video, or they just get more than anybody else for whatever reason.
Yeah.
One time at the Gettysburg Bash or whatever, I'm going to get everybody together in one spot, because I'll tell you, when you're all together like that, the best thing to do is just say, nobody go anywhere. Don't make plans Friday night to go, because at the end of it, everybody goes, like, just go get something to eat, and that's it. So we need to sit around, have like a bonfire outside, just sit around and share evidence and, talk to each other and go, what did you get here? What did you get there? Brian from Ghost Quest was trying to do that, putting up places and say, put your evidence here, put the things that you found. We were talking about that last night or last week, where it would be an amazing thing to have a database, kind of like the fingerprint database. Where you just put in your location, maybe by longitude and latitude or whatever, and go, I was here, and this is what we got, and these are the pictures we got, and, to see if it matched up, because maybe we could get, I'm just always thinking of the ghost first. That's me. And I'm thinking, my God, how many hundreds of years has it taken them to little pieces of sentences, little bits? Because for some damn reason, one of the number one questions about the paranormal is, why doesn't a ghost just say what the hell it means and get it done? But it doesn't, do they?
No.
Yeah, it'd be nice if it was just that easy.
Wouldn't it be? It's like, hey, I'm really looking for help, or no, you're bothering me. Stop asking me questions. Go away. Just say what you mean, man. It's like, but it's so funny how they do that. You use little pieces, and we have to try to put it together.
Like that, though, where a ghost allegedly would type something out on a typewriter or maybe even a computer keyboard.
Nice.
People looking on their computer and finding stuff on the screen. Now, that'd be a great way to communicate, and it's electronic and electric in the case of a computer. Might be easier for them, but who knows? Like you said, how long does it take them to come up with enough energy to manifest enough just to say a few words in an EVP, or move a ball across the floor, or knock a picture off the wall? They may have spent the last 25 years charging up their battery to do that.
Just to do that. Or I think that I have a theory that's why we see like just a pair of boots with no legs and no body walking down a road.
Like I was tired that day.
Yeah.
Boots is all I can manage to manifest.
Or just a head. You know, because why would a head not have its body? Why would it not consciously manifest as, you know, what would
Right.
consciously make energy that exists after the body, physical
Unless
body
there was
dies?
some, extenuating circumstance when they
Right.
lost their head,
Yeah.
and that's what killed them or whatever. I've heard of that, where there was a place there just outside of Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where a guy ran through a barbed wire fence on a motorcycle back in the 40s and lost his head. And supposedly, if you go and back your car up in this little country dirt road, you can see his head sitting in the bushes off to the side. And
That's so creepy.
occasionally, there's tales of a phantom cyclist still looking for his head. So 2 hauntings in one there.
I'd rather see. I'm with Steve. We've talked about this before, but I'd rather see the floating head than like disembodied hands or legs.
Yeah, there's just something frightening about legs.
I don't know, because if we're going to pick body parts that we want floating out of it, I got a list I don't want coming at me. I'm just saying. I don't know if I could. The hand would be creepy. I've seen the head. It was well creepy, I assure you. I don't think I've ever seen, other than maybe if you counted like a hand coming out of a cabinet, but not just like a hand floating through the air. I'll tell you, one of the creepiest things I ever saw was a cigarette come down from the ceiling, float down, lit. You could see the draw. You didn't see the smoke come out, but you saw the smoke. You know, like when you're drawing on a cigarette, the smoke dissipates from what it's going somewhere.
Yeah.
And then just absolutely just disappear.
Wow.
I had a friend that encountered something like that one night. They were out on a little country road there in Knox County, walking home in the dark, and they saw the glow of a cigarette coming, and she's thinking, well, hopefully that's somebody I know. And when it went by, it was just a cigarette. There was no person attached to it. And she waited till it passed and then broke into a run, but it didn't give chase. But yeah, I don't know what it is about legs. Legs are a common occurrence as an apparition.
Wow, that's creepy.
Rocky Top Motor in there in Gatlinburg, where they had a murder back in the 80s, the Tattoo Eddie murders, they call it. They murdered the night clerk and another guy, and they used to see her legs running around. There was a water fountain there in the back court of the motel.
How far up did they go, Steve? I mean,
these were just to the knee.
Okay.
And then I heard about in Kentucky at Mammoth Cave, where Floyd Collins famously died in the cave, and they couldn't get him out of there until after he was already deceased. I've heard stories of they see a pair of legs in overalls from the waist down running down the hillside. That's no.
Yeah, I've heard about that one too at Mammoth Cave.
Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, Eric. Saw a floating head once outside her bedroom window when she was young. Scared the crap out of me. Well, I can imagine so. Are you kidding me? I mean, I was young when I saw mine too, but, and I had found out that other people had seen him. And this was a Revolutionary War soldier ghost in an old farm, but almost 200-year-old farm when I lived in it in Jackson, New Jersey. So very close to Battle of Monmouth and so many other battles out here, skirmishes and whatnot. But he was one of those ghosts that seemed to materialize in different parts. Like some would just see, like, say, maybe a chest, from the waist up and from the neck down, walk through. But see, to me, that feels like I don't have enough energy to be whole today. Or just a mindless, I'm just walking through. Maybe it's not even on purpose. Maybe it just happens when the energy is just right or something.
Just seeing if they could do it, maybe showing off a little bit. Like, I'll just give them the legs and see what they think about that.
Yeah, that could be too. Or, I was going to say when you guys were talking about the other there's, I brought it up a couple times, but it's getting to be a really good, point of reference is the show Ghost, which is also big in UK as it is here. There's two versions. I'm a huge fan
of both of them.
I am too. I love them both. And when the American version came out, I'll be honest, Eric, I wanted to hate it because I was already in love with the British one. Yeah. And I went in, I'm not going to like it. I'm absolutely loving it halfway through the first episode. I did. Mm-hmm. But the interesting thing is they've put a lot of feeling and thought into this, I think. It's much different, Steve, than a show 20 years ago would be. Each ghost has its own talent, skill. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think that's such a refreshing look at it because they're saying, like the last one, I don't know if spoiler alert, if you hadn't seen the last episode, the newest one called The Vault, Sorry. And this guy is a new ghost, just happens along. They bump into him, let's just put it that way. And his thing is when he walks through people, he makes that person horny.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I thought that was so interesting because I'm wondering, and the whole time I'm sitting here thinking like, podcaster Cisco, and I'm thinking, now, is that because he was that way in life and that was his most prominent thing because he was messing around with everybody? They made a point to say he was boinking all the maids and everybody else, and right? So I'm wondering if they're trying to tell us that that's the way you have to. It's an interesting way of looking at it, is what I mean.
Yeah, the one that I think is funny is on the British version, the witch that was burned at the stake. When she walks through people, they smell burnt toast.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
That's another one. And one of them, it's flagellants, right?
Yeah.
One of them walks through and he smells like somebody really bad, horrible flagellants.
Yeah. That'll be me in the afterlife.
And then one of them, the guy without pants in the American version, that's what made me think of it. Was Steve was saying, trying to press the keys to do a message, or I think he even set up his own Twatter or Twitch or something.
It was a dating profile.
Sliding left. He was doing a lot of sliding left, but it took him a while to do one thing at a time. But it made sense because it also goes with the ghost. Patrick Swayze ghost with the penny. I have to concentrate. I have to think about it. So
I remember, like in The Sixth Sense, Bruce Willis would try to open the door and he couldn't get the knob to turn and things like that before he knew that he was dead. Sorry for any spoilers there if you haven't seen The Sixth Sense.
Oh yeah. That was good. And there was the other
that
twist
one
in the
got me
others.
because you didn't know until the end that he was the ghost. You thought he was helping all these ghosts or helping the little boy that saw a ghost. Turns out he was the ghost and the little boy was helping him.
Yeah,
Boom,
I saw a meme going around saying, how much did that guy love his job? He still went to work even after he was dead.
Exactly. But it was the way they shot everything too. It was the cinematography in that, and the way he was just having a conversation. You just thought his wife was pissed. Guys had no problem buying the fact
made perfect
that
sense.
I mean,
times have you had that happen?
It's I did that for 5 days straight once. He's just caught in one of those loops. She'll come around. But yeah, that was a trick.
If she had said something, she would have said nothing.
Nothing? Yeah,
What's
what's
the
wrong?
matter?
Nothing. Leave me alone.
I know something's wrong then.
Leave me alone, man. Leave me alone. That's true. But others was like that too, had that twist and zap at the end. And I applaud them for it. It drove me crazy with the keys and the running back and forth. But it made sense afterwards, and it did have that flip that this was from the ghost perspective, and the ghosts thought they were being haunted by the living. And I often wonder, isn't that the way it probably is?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that whole time slip thing of kind of the nowadays slipping into their reality or dimension or whatever. Yeah.
The bleed over and stuff like that. I think it's happening a lot faster, a lot more frequent. I don't know what you guys think, but that's my take right now. I think it really is.
Yeah, there are a lot more. I've heard a lot more stories in the past few years about time slips for sure.
Hey, there's Frozen Moments in the chat. He's Tennessee as well.
Are you? Welcome in. Welcome
Tennessee in here tonight, buddy. You
welcome in. He has a lot of good comments too. He's absolutely one of the gatekeepers in here because, it's amazing to me the knowledge and everybody has, and the understanding. It's an absolute pleasure to sit in front of a group of people that you don't have to, we'll take things apart and reanalyze them because we learn on here too. I mean, we've been hit with stuff, Steve, that we were 40 years we should have figured it out. Bam.
And Donnie Cho comes in here and says 10 words and we're like,
what? We never looked at it that way, but that's what we do this for, Eric, right?
Yeah.
Not just the digging and finding out, but like you said in your video, the storytelling. And and having the interest in everybody, right? Everybody's interested in it, and then they have their take, and look at it this way and look at it that way, and you talk about it.
You never have too many eyes or too many minds
an awesome
scratching
thing.
away at something.
Yeah.
this old soul right here, I mean, to tell you to go to, honestly, to go from being a little girl cross-legged in front of a damn Zenith, with 2 buttons on, it was off, on, and volume. That's what you got. You had to get up, change the channel. I thank you very much. You just had 2 buttons on that was it.
Yeah. And there were only 3 channels.
Yep. And that was it. And to sit there and just wait and look forward to October, and you might get a ghost story on one of the local news, or you might get a ghost story on one of the early shows, sightings, or That's Incredible, or some of those other ones.
I looked forward to. We had a PBS affiliate out of Sneedville, Tennessee, which usually you couldn't even pick it up, but if the weather was just right and the planets were aligned, you could see In Search Of on PBS, and it's like. I remember seeing that and just getting my socks knocked off.
Yeah.
That's Leonard Nimoy, and he's talking about ghosts or
and
Bigfoot
the history,
or the Loch Ness Monster.
Oh.
I've got all those on DVD. I got the whole series on DVD.
Yeah, I find it crazy that a lot of my guests that I talk to, because I try to start out with like the origin question, because everybody has an interesting origin story on the
right.
when I talk to them on the podcast, and everybody has their own unique reason, but one of the common threads is the show In Search Of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That I hear from so many people, especially paranormal authors. That's where they got their love of the paranormal and wanting to write about it and be part of it.
That did it for me.
Yep, and they had a little bit of a different take on it. Unsolved Mysteries did a lot. Sightings, absolutely loved Sightings. I pulled up some stuff from Sightings last night. The way they did it, they were really setting the bar, because I remember Sightings. Was really coming big when computers were starting to be in everybody's home. They were big and clunky, and they were the green screen with the blue light. You know what I'm saying?
Keyboard clack and crack, crack,
and the
crack,
dial up and all that mess. But they had a database. If you have any information on this, please write in and tell us. They did that, and there was another one that did that too. But I think Sightings was one of the first ones to. I know America's Most Wanted did it not very long after. They had their, where the host walks through the whole room full of computers. And everybody's busy on the phone. It's like they're calling in with their ghost stories, guys. That's so funny.
And what was it, The Ghost with Patrick McNee? That one, I remember when it came out. That was another good one. I've got that one on DVD too. They did segments like that. Each show they'd tell like 3 or 4 stories and have different reporters on it. And then, what was Robert Stack on? Was that Unsolved Mysteries or?
Yeah, Robert Stack was Unsolved Mysteries.
He was my spirit animal, man. I love Robert Stack.
Yeah.
Here's a blast from the past. See, look at this one. Does anyone remember Man, Myth, and Magic? It was a magazine in the 70s and a TV show. Remember that one?
I remember the magazine, but I never saw the TV show. Fate.
I didn't see the show. Fate
still exists.
Fate,
I'm friends with a lady that's running Fate now.
The Ghost of Mrs. Moore. I'll tell you what, that was a great show. I really wanted them to hook up. I was rooting for the Ghost, man. He was such a cool Captain Ghost. Remember that? Mm-hmm. The show. Now, the movie was something else. It was really very, very good. Black and white. I can't remember who was in it. I think... Oh, gosh, I can't remember her name. She escapes me. But very well done.
Mrs. Muir.
Mrs. Muir.
Mrs. Muir.
Mrs.
He was
Muir.
a sea captain who had come back, and she was living in his old house or something.
Yep. My mother the car.
House or something.
My mother the car. That was a haunted car.
That was a ghost story, yeah.
While y'all are talking, I'm going to go check my P-mail.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Steve likes to say, I'll be right back.
Go ahead. I think it was, Steve. It was absolutely a haunted car.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. Of course, it was a comedy, but there you go.
Well, we had The Ghost of Mr. Chicken with Don Knotts.
That's classic.
It is. That's the one where he was had to stay in the haunted house, right? Mm-hmm. I forget why.
Yeah, he was a reporter named Luther.
Okay.
And he claimed that the house was haunted, and they bet him that he wouldn't spend the night in there or something. And then they had gone in and tried to rig it up to make it haunted.
But it was haunted. Yeah.
No, he claimed he saw somebody killed outside or inside or something, and that was how the thing started. But if you've never seen The Ghost of Mr. Chicken with Don Knotts, go watch it. It's an incredible classic, and you'll see a lot of people that you recognize that were on the Andy Griffith Show too.
Yeah, and Edna had the hots for the captain. So did I.
I was
just a little kid
with the coat and a little trim beard and everything.
I liked him
looked
a lot.
like a sea captain. Mm-hmm. And who played Mrs. Muir? Was it?
In the show, it was.
Was it the mom from the Partridge Family, Shirley
Nope,
Jones?
nope. It was the same chick from Crowhaven Farm, Hope Lang. Woo! I pulled that one. That one hurt. That one come way out the back. It was sharp.
Yeah, it was a 1947 film. I don't know that I've ever
Oh,
seen
the film. Yeah, it's
the
black and
original
white.
film.
And that is with Rex Harrison, I believe, and I can't remember the woman. Was she the one that played in Wuthering Heights, or was it the one in
let's see.
Gone with the Wind?
Jean Tierney. I don't know.
Jean Tierney. Okay,
what
neither
she'd been
one.
in before, but she
Neither
was
one.
Lucy Muir in that. Leaves London with her young daughter, moves away from a quieter life at a scheduled seaside cottage, and discovers the ghost of the deceased former owner, Sea Captain Daniel Gregg, Rex Harrison. But
There you go. And there's a link to the
movie.
Ghost of Mrs. Muir right there.
And let's see the TV show.
Thanks,
Lang.
Jackie.
Hope
Hope
Lang.
Lang.
Edward Mulhari, I don't know how you say that. And I forgot Charles Nelson Riley was in that too.
Oh, he was. Yes, he was. He was the manager or something. And somebody here was
He was
saying
the
Jerry
skipper.
Van Dyke. Who? Glenn? Jerry Van Dyke? I don't think he was in either one of those. Are you guys talking about something else? Maybe so. We were having fun, Eric, while you was gone, and we just gone completely stark raving nuts here naming old movies. But I have to say, The Time of Their Lives. Have you ever seen The Time of Their Lives, Eric? Have you seen that?
I have not.
It's Abbott and Costello, 1938.
That's the closest thing I've ever seen.
Damn ghost movie ever made.
I think so.
They have it down.
From the ghost perspective.
I'm going to get excited now because I just praised this movie. First of all, it's Abbott and Costello.
Right.
Okay. It's history. It's Revolutionary War. They talk about George Washington and in-depth things that, I've heard myself looking in through history, right? So they did their homework. It's got the seance, the medium, the comedy. It's got the first time I ever believe seeing on TV, other than maybe little jump things here and there, full dress, no body coming down the stairs.
I've never seen it, but I know what you're talking about now. Yeah.
It's got
I've
a
seen
curse.
Scenes.
Yeah, it's got, they have to break the curse or they're stuck on Earth, and the whole 9 yards is in this movie. It's fantastic. And it's free. You can watch it on Daily Motion, free. Just dailymotion.com and look up The Time of Their Lives, Abbott and Costello. I talk about it every Halloween. I have to because it's just so good.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out.
And I think we're good. Oh, thank you, Donnie, so much. I didn't even see that super chat. I'll tell you what, those super chats help a lot. Thank you guys so much. Donnie is asking, curious to know what kinds of stuff Eric's into outside the paranormal. Well, how deep you want to go, Donnie Cho? I guess it depends on Eric. How deep you want to go, Eric?
I'll give you the Cliff Notes version.
There you go.
I worked in emergency medicine for 20 years, so that was my job. And now I do the paranormal for a living, so I'm happy for that. But I'm a huge true crime nerd, other than paranormal. And it's weird because when I get because doing the paranormal all the time and doing the podcast, and then now the videos, I'm writing the book. I kind of need a palate cleanser from the paranormal. So my palate cleanser is true crime documentaries and podcasts, and so
wow.
Yeah.
But I find that really goes in. There's an awful lot of police, and in the paranormal, you'll see that a lot. And you go to big cons and stuff. A lot of people. Have you had any experiences as an EMT that would work, either in the supernatural or the paranormal realm that would fit there? I would imagine.
Yeah, I actually submitted a story to Haunted Hospitals, the TV show. So I'm waiting to hear back from them. But I believe I saw the Angel of Death one time. I was working at a nursing home on night shift, and the other two nurses were gone to lunch, and I was the only one on the hall. And it's like one of those creepy horror movies where all the lights are out, and it looks like a hospital because it's patient rooms. And the only light on was at the nurse's station because everybody's asleep and in bed. And I walked up to the T in the hallway and looked to the left, and down at the end of the hall, with backlit from the parking lot through the double doors, was a tall, skinny gentleman in a all black suit. And he was a younger guy, and he smiled at me and turned left and went into a patient room. And I walked down there because I'm like, it's like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, there's nobody supposed to be here. So I walked down there to see who's in the building. And I'm kind of creeped out because I'm like, what if this is somebody going to attack me or hurt a patient or. But I go in the room and I flip the light on. There's nobody there. Just the patients, it's a ward room. So there's 2 patients on each side. And I walked in there and flipped the light on. There's nobody there. And then, but the story gets even crazier because I go home at 7:00 the next morning. I come back the next night for my shift and found out an hour after I went home, one of the patients in that room died.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man. That's just, wow. Steve, you've seen something similar. Why don't you tell Eric about that? I mean, I hate to let it go by. I mean, it's very, very similar. I know you... Was it in a children's ward, you said? You saw the black thing?
That was at East Tennessee Children's Hospital, and that was more just in my mind's eye, but I could see like a black cloud hanging over that place. And just, there's children in there. They had a burn ward and kids just in incredible pain and stuff in there. And whatever this presence was, it was feeding off there. I could feel it, but in my mind's eye, it looked like a big black cloud. But I've heard some stuff about nursing homes too. Heard similar stories from people that worked in those about seeing what they believed in retrospect was the angel of death or somebody that had come to collect a loved one or something like that. The creepiest story I ever heard happened at a girl's home. She was asleep one night and she dreamed that the angel of death come to her and said, "It's time to go. Come with me." And she said, "No, I'm too young. Take somebody else." And the angel of death says, "Who shall I take?" And she says, "I don't know. Take my grandpa. He's old." And then the next morning, her grandpa had passed away during the night. Wow. And it absolutely ruined her. She spent years in therapy. She was like 13, 14 when it happened. And she said, "I thought it was a dream, but looking back on it, she think, I think it was real. And I sent him to take my grandpa."
Oh my God. Wow. Can you imagine? That's like the Chinaman button kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, with that, you don't know who's going to, go.
Another place, there's a nursing home in East Knoxville. I can't remember the name of it right now. But they had a dog, like a therapy dog in there that, people would pet and stuff. And they said they would notice that anytime the dog started hanging around a certain person's room, either in the room or just outside the door, that person usually had 24 to 48 hours and then they pass on. Somehow the dog knew, and it just normally would wander the hallways and go into different rooms and stuff. But when it wouldn't leave a room or leave a door, they said that was pretty much the end of that person. So the dog had some kind of sixth sense or foresight or something there. Yeah.
He could tell. He could sense it coming. I just read a story about a cat. Same thing for like, this cat lived to be about 18 years old too. Mm-hmm. And can you imagine being in the room and you see the cat coming towards you? No, go back. Go away. Donnie says he sees a lot of that crossover in true crime and paranormal people. I think it's just the digging and the mystery.
Yeah.
I think it's the mystery. That's
one of my passions too, is true crime. I wrote about it a lot during the 90s. I covered a lot of criminal trials down south and wrote a lot of bad folks for the true crime magazines that were out at the time. T.E.D. Klein had started a magazine called Crime Beat, and I wrote for that. So I wrote to a lot of those guys, and they wrote back. I had letters from Charles Manson, Tex Watson, Robert Bardo, John Wayne Gacy. I finally had to get rid of all that stuff. It
carries energy on it.
It has an energy that I didn't want around, especially after my daughter was born. I had a Gacy painting of one of his skull clowns, and I'd bought it because of the Son of Sam law. He couldn't make any money, but he had given all his paintings to his lawyer, and his lawyer was selling them and then keeping Gacy in canteen funds. So I bought one from him. He was somewhere down in Louisiana, I think. And I don't know, after my daughter was born, I was just sitting there watching her play on the floor one night, and I looked up above her, and there's that skull clown leering down. I thought, man, this has got to go. And I got a couple $100 out of it, which was more than I'd paid for it. But now with Gacy gone, that thing would be worth a fortune. Same with my letters from some of those guys. I actually loaned some of those to somebody that was doing a criminology class, and I never got them back. But I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I guarantee it would carry some kind of energy. And speaking about energy, I did want to mention this because Glenn brought it up here. The Time of Their Lives is the name of another movie, and it's an absolutely fantastic movie about World War II soldiers coming back from home. And I promise you, I saw that when I know I was under 8. I was home alone by myself. I was sitting on the floor, like I said earlier. That generation sat on the floor in front of the TV. You're gonna ruin your eyes. We all heard that all our lives. Yeah. But I can remember glued to the TV set watching how hard it was for soldiers to come back from the war. And one gentleman lost both arms, and he had the hooks, and he was trying to deal with how he got ready, and the girl he left behind trying to struggle with it. I'll never forget it, Glenn. It made an impression on me my whole life. I'm glad you mentioned that. Thank you. So sorry to interrupt you guys. We are kind of talking a lot about soldiers and stuff tonight, and I can imagine many of those foreign soils are just as stained with blood and memories as ours are. Are you done with the jail, hun? Or you want me to go to the next, or?
Yeah, we can go to the next.
I'm not rushing you. Go ahead.
If anybody is interested in investigating the jail, they do rent it out for investigations. You can go take a tour. The museum's open. Just Historic Scott County Jail on Facebook, and they also have a website, historicscottcountyjail.com. So they're
all
open.
Step away for just a minute. I'll be right back. Time for me and Mulder to check our P-mail. So.
That's cool. I also saw on their website when I was looking for pictures, I think they're doing something for Valentine's. It's like, that you can have dinner, the lovers thing in the jail. That's crazy. Yeah. There you go, guys.
They're doing an interesting experiment with the investigators that are coming in, to where they've got a detective who there's like it was a solved murder, but he has put some stuff in an envelope, and they have it in a lockbox. And if you come in to investigate the jail, they will put you in a room with it, and you have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and you just basically write down in this journal what you psychically get from it, or energy you're feeling from it. And what they're going to do is after 6 months of it, and so many people have done it, the only person that knows what's in the envelope is the detective, not even Dr. Chris or Miranda, who run the museum and the jail. But after 6 months or so, they're going to give everything to him, and he's going to see if anybody was right about the murder and who, the circumstances behind it and all that stuff they put in the journal. So it's a really interesting paranormal experiment that they're doing, and they've taken out the whole human element, because like I said, they don't even know what's in there. So
right, just to try to get just feelings off of it and stuff. I think it's interesting because there's so many paranormal experiments going on. Steve and I are still I don't know if you were in the chat the night we were talking about the Titanic, and we heard all that. So if you want to be a part of that. Now, what's happened is Steve's ordered stuff, and I think it's sitting on a cargo thing out in Port of Los Angeles somewhere, maybe. Or maybe it's laying in an empty box that's laying in train tracks over there. I don't know if you've seen what's happened on Amazon packages and stuff.
In L.A. or something.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many boxes, the trains can't go on the tracks. It's actually derailing trains, so it's horrible if you've ordered stuff. But we're not giving up on the Titanic experiment. What did you think about that? What do you think about that idea, going through to each person, and each person taking a turn, and then telling people, follow the box. If you're here and you're connected to me, don't stay with me, follow the artifact, follow the box. And then we get to the last thing. I've got Jeremy, I don't know if you're familiar with Jeremy Enflinger. Oh my gosh, he's part of the Black Vault. He works with that and stuff and all. And, I just really love to have everybody put their expertise on it. And then I'm going to take it to the Hoover, where they have artifacts that came from the Titanic, and there's a cook captain that had nothing to do with the ship. They were hired with his crew, about 60, to cook for this ship. He came like his own little subcontractor kind of thing, and his crew got locked down and were drowned. And he came to the people in Hoover and said that he wants them crossed. There's something going on, and he knows it. There's some interest, and he wants to go and collect all those souls that are still hovering around the Titanic wreckage and stuff, and bring them. And I'm like, wow, this is like ghosts going in every direction to help other ghosts, that are weaker in energy, I guess, or thought, or, scrambled, and coming together with the living. It's just an amazing thing. Have you been to the Hoover? Or you're in Tennessee, so you're not too close to Pennsylvania, but
no, I have not. But I was in the chat the night that y'all were talking about the Titanic and the ice fell and all that, and I had just been to the Titanic Museum in Gatlinburg, And when I made the teaser video that you played, I put the picture of the Titanic Museum in there just for y'all.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
How incredible is that?
Yeah.
And we seem to have some kind of a thing. Apparently, we've killed, my God, we've killed Meatloaf.
Right.
And who else was it? Mike Nesbitt. And I'm afraid to mention any names on here. I think Betty White. I mean, every time we talk about somebody, Steve and I, well, it's Monday Madness, so we got to be careful. You know,
Right.
I hope Rex Harrison, has he passed? Because we've already talked about him tonight. I forgot about the stuff on this show. See, y'all got me mentioning things. I was reading off names. I'm pretty sure Hope Lang is she gone? Well, if she isn't, she better.
Right.
We talked a lot about Hope Lang. Somebody let Hope know to get her stuff in order. Oh my goodness, isn't that awful? But it gets scary after 5. 5 and
Yeah,
1.
yeah, it's I don't believe in coincidences like that. There's something, and the
Something's
more
weird.
that I talk about the paranormal and talk to different people on the podcast, the more it makes sense that it's all intertwined. And a lot of my guests,
I agree.
I don't know these people, most of them,
Right.
you know, and but we'll get to talking and they'll say something or it'll connect back to me in some weird way.
Wow.
That it's just this weird, I can't even call it coincidence, like synchronicity. I guess is a better
Synchronicities.
word.
But there's a lot, chat. Are you guys noticing too? They'll talk about the sir. Brian, I'll say it. I'll say his name out loud. You know, tell you the truth. I'm not gonna say he. It's not an ant, but it's another type of bug, really popular in the 60s. And some people just go ape nuts over them. But like I said, I'll keep mentioning Yoko every show. So there you go. So, I got nothing against the woman. She just shouldn't be making albums. But other than that, man, it is trippy. I do believe it's all connected, and I think the synchronicities. In the chat, everybody was saying last night and last week that they're noticing more too. Things amping up. So we're trying to put out little experiments like we did during Christmas. I said, try this to get signs from your loved ones, or at least see how work on you. You know, does it make you feel better if you do these things? You know, meaningful things instead of being, you know, you can't help but be sad, but you can kind of laugh through the sadness and you could put good energy out there and you could flip it. So a lot of us tried that, and you know, it really helped out. Some people had experiences, and Edna, she actually got one where she did something for her grandfather specifically, and she was talking about it. Something was going on, and all of a sudden, right after, somebody on the TV says, "Luther, Luther, Luther."
Wow.
And that was his name. And I mean, it's just timing. And we were talking about that last night too, putting stuff out there so the universe can use it. Meaning, think about it this way. It's all in how you think about things. So when you lose something, sometimes you really panic, especially if you really need it, your wallet, your car keys, or something like that. But when you lose something precious to you, it really gets to you. You lost a ring down, you know, you're not sure where you put it, something like that. And it's hard to part with things, but as soon as I feel myself start to go, all right, I really want to find it. Stop looking for it. More than likely, you're going to find it when you stop looking for it. But you also kind of have to let it go before that happens. And I kind of picked up this thing is, look, if I find $10, somebody had to lose it.
Right.
The universe needs something to work with. If you know, person A over here needs $10, person B's got to lose it, or we got to get it from somewhere.
Right, it's a balancing.
Right. The same with, you know, pennies from heaven. They have to get those pennies from somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, whether they're apporting it or not, whether they're apporting it like the cigarette that comes out of the ceiling, or, I mean, how in the world does that happen? It's a material thing. How are they getting it through?
Right.
You know, it'll drive you mad. I've heard of eggs coming through the ceiling whole.
Wow.
And raw eggs not breaking, then hitting the floor and breaking. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
How is that happening? And, you know, rain, you hear a lot of that kind of thing. I can almost see the condensation, a buildup of moisture gathering from the elements to pull it in. I could almost see that happening, you know. But whole objects, like, are you familiar with the story of, is it very similar? It happened in Devil's Den, Gettysburg, on the rocks, reenactors, sitting there. Didn't have enough ammo, forgot his ammo, looked in the pouch, where you keep the rolled up gunpowder and stuff.
Right.
And you've got your shot, And he's looking in the bag. He's like, oh, gosh, I forgot. Here, take some of mine. He turns around. Guy hands it to him. And he's like looking at his hand. Oh, thanks. And they were perfectly rolled the way they were supposed to be and everything. Because you know how reenactors, every stitch.
Yeah, it has to be exact. Yeah.
Every, seriously. I mean, these dudes are hardcore. So he's looking at it and he's impressed with the fact that it's, it's authentic. He didn't realize how authentic it was. Because he turns to thank the guy. And this is wide open rocks. I don't know if you've ever been to Gettysburg. But you can see in every direction.
Yeah, there's no way somebody just
go.
That quick. Yeah.
He's gone. He starts to realize that's when the hair stands up on his arms and the back of his neck and stuff because he's realizing what's happened. And he doesn't use it that day. And he takes it in town. Any direction you spit in, you're going to hit a museum out there, Gettysburg. Yeah. So he takes it in and they look at it and the guy authenticates it. It's like, where did you get this? Did you buy this from the museum? They probably charge you a lot of. No, man, I just, I don't want to tell you where I got it from. It was one of those, but it was authentic, and I don't know if they carbon dated it back to time, but it went through enough people, and Eric will tell you. Be hanging in a lot of museums and stuff. You do. These people that are curators at museums, they know their stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And so do reenactors. So, I mean, if they say it was authentic, who am I to say different? So, that was the trip. But apporting really trips me because I've had pennies with my birth date show up here just recently. The birthday week. Everybody said hi to me. It was awesome. I mean, like all my loved ones from the other side. Everybody found a way to do a special little thing. And I don't know if that's... I was more open to it. We're more open to it. The universe is more open to it right now. The veil is thinning. It's effacing, I think. And I don't know why. Are you getting that from your guests too? Are they seeing an amp up of?
Yeah, I've asked quite a few of them, and they all, especially investigators, are we're getting more evidence now. I mean, people who've been doing it for 20, 30 years are in the past few years it's definitely all the activities ramped up and the energy is definitely higher in some of these places.
Mm-hmm. And I do think and absolutely the reenactors do stir things up. And I think, let's put it this way, in a lot of cases, I think a huge number of the soldiers that are ghosts there already know what's coming. I mean, some of the ones I've talked to are very communicative, but they don't want to leave their brothers who aren't ready to go yet. They're working on their state and stability. You know what I mean? I wouldn't have said that 5 years ago, but now I'm coming across more and more and more ghosts that are here, have crossed over, and come back to help another cross.
Yeah.
Some do it multiple in certain situations, such as the Hoover House. They literally do this. It's like they've set up this whole infrastructure of spirit, living, people helping the earthbound, and then the crossed over and spirit guides and all the angels, you name it, has been in there. And this one guy who had an attachment, I think it was a couple weeks ago, he went there because he heard it was such a good place. He didn't know where else to go, and his friends convinced him to come and stay at the bed and breakfast, or his wife did, one of the two. He goes in and he sits down and he's talking to some of my friends who run KSPS Paranormal, Dave and Jim and the Barrys and everybody out there. You've probably seen him on the show. Yeah. So he goes and confesses to him. He goes, I think I've got something on me. I feel sick all the time. I feel like, and they go through the whole thing and he explains what he can remember and what he can put together. And Jim goes, come here. Sits him down at the table tipping and said, this is one for the spirits because I can only listen to you, but they know what you need. Yeah. And they got that thing off of him so quick and tossed it, got his name, got it, the whole shebang, and banished him out of that house and off that guy. And a week later, he comes back and tells him how his life completely changed. It lifted off, almost like a curse clung to him, And we know that can happen, can't it, Steve?
Oh, yeah. All too easy.
Yeah.
We waited. We've been just visiting while you were gone. We waited on the pictures because I didn't want you to miss none of it.
Oh, well, thank you.
Look at this one here. Tell us about this.
The Lotes house is another Civil War era house in Franklin, Tennessee. It's a couple miles from Carton Plantation. It is across the street from a better known location called the Carter House. And the Carter House, they're a little tight-lipped about their haunted history, but the Lotes house, they very much embrace it. It is open for paranormal investigations. You can go in there for tours every day of the week too, like you see on the sign there.
It's beautiful.
And Thomas, the director, is amazing. I've talked to him many times, and he's just a wealth of information. But you got bloodstains in the floors here.
I was going to say, that looks like bloodstains on the floor right there.
Yeah.
And they had several rooms with bloodstains and cannonball holes, and I mean, so much in this house. So, and this was like right in the middle of a battle as well, pretty much.
This was during the Battle of Franklin as well, but this house is more downtown Franklin.
Okay.
What would have been the downtown area back then, and there's Franklin. You can't. I mean, especially from Lotes house, you can't spit without hitting a house that was built in the late 1700s, early 1800s. The interesting thing about the Lotes house, it was Johann Lotes built it, and he was a master woodworker. So the staircase that you see is actually free floating cantilever staircase.
Wow.
It is not
impressive.
attached. It is not attached.
It's
and
like
he
that
carved
one in
all
that
that by hand.
church. It's like, I'm sorry, it's like that one in that church had 33 steps and the guy just disappeared out of nowhere. That's what that reminded me of.
Screws, anything. Yeah, I've heard about that. That's amazing.
It's beautiful.
So at the bottom of the stairs there's where the end of the railing comes, Johann Lotes also carved pianos and piano legs. And so at the bottom of the stairs there's a upside down piano leg. So this house was a showcase for him to bring clients in and say, this is what I can do for you. So every mantle in the house is different. And that wasn't to show opulence or anything like that. That was to show what he could do as a wood carver.
Like a demo house.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And so there's all this ornate woodwork all around the house that he hand carved. The house went through lots of incarnations throughout its history. It was a lawyer's office and all that before the private owners bought it, and they run it as a nonprofit for history now. So it is privately owned, but it's a nonprofit and it's a museum, and you can go in and look through. It's an incredible house, incredible story. There's still, like you said, Cisco, there's in the gift shop area, there's still a burn mark where a cannonball came through the ceiling. And some of the floors, he just hastily repaired them with whatever wood he had laying around afterwards, because multiple cannonballs came through the ceiling and busted out the second floor and landed in the bottom floors. One of the crazy story was the Lotes family. It was the husband, wife, and a few kids. They actually went across the street to the Carter House, because the Carter House during the Battle of Franklin, the Carter House is brick. This is a wood house. Yeah. And so if they would have stayed in there with the cannonballs coming through, they possibly could have got shot or killed with bullets coming through the walls and that type of stuff. And they reported that when they came back from the Carter House, which is about 50 yards across the street, they walked back to their house and their feet never touched the ground. They were walking on top of bodies.
Yeah.
And this was a huge epicenter. Yeah. And
you can't even imagine it. You can't even imagine it. The stories I've heard, walking across rivers that ran red with blood and didn't have to touch water because they walked on bodies. That's so many people, man. Yeah. People forget. If you've never been in a war, what it's like. And I always harken back to that speech in The Patriot that Mel Gibson gives: is you don't want this in this will be in your front yard. And for these people, it really was.
Yeah, and to be a German immigrant and come and just be thrown in the middle of this battle that you have nothing, you're not
right.
You don't care about either side. You're just glad to be in a new country.
You just don't want to get killed.
Yeah, and you want to protect your family. The Lotes family ended up getting run out of town after the Civil War because Johann Lotes, he carved this piano for a customer, and he carved this eagle, and one of the eagle's talons downturned was the Confederate flag. And so a bunch of the Confederate sympathizers run him out of town, and his family ended up moving to San Jose, and their descendants still live in San Jose to this day.
Wow. Yeah. Just something that little, it was a tough time. I often think about the Revolutionary War too. I mean, in the beginning, how did you know who was who?
Right.
So, people fear and trying to survive are two really convincing emotions to have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it makes people do the dumbest things. Dumbest things.
Yeah.
Pull people out of jailhouses and hang them. Just all kind of horrible stuff. And I think we should learn. We should try to learn from our past anyway, so we don't repeat it, right? But that's something, and to be run out of town like that. But this is absolutely beautiful.
And another interesting thing about the wood floors is upstairs in the bedroom, what would have been the Lotz's, the parents' bedroom, in between the bed and the wall, there's a carving in the wood floor that they believe a Civil War soldier carved in there. And it's still there to this day. But this, like I said, it went through many incarnations with being a lawyer's office for like 25, 30 years until it was bought by this private owner who wanted to restore the house and keep it as a historical site. And there's all kinds of different apparitions, and there's a drum from the Civil War actually in a display case downstairs, and they've got a little museum area where they've got different pieces in there. And people have reported hearing the sound of the drum playing by this glass case that it's in. And Thomas, the director, they have mini balls that you can buy in the gift shop for, $2 or $3 a piece. They've been dug up on the battlefield or whatever.
Right.
He'll come in the morning, and the mini balls will be stacked. They'll be stacked, lined up on the floor in the gift shop. He's also found them upstairs in one of the bedrooms, a row of them lined up in the floor upstairs. And then in one of the upstairs rooms, it was a sitting room, and there's a spittoon. And if they move this spittoon from where it's at, they will come in and it'll be moved back. So they've moved it into another room, and it's just reappeared in the room where it was. And
it right where it's supposed to be.
Yeah. They can't ever move it. I've investigated the Lotes house. They do rent it out for investigations. I've actually went there a couple of years ago and did an investigation. And my cousin was with me on his first paranormal investigation. And we were across the hall from the bedroom I was talking about, that you have the carving in the floor. And my cousin's like tapped me on the shoulder, and I turned around and look, and he had just seen a lady in a long dress walk across the doorway. And I ran over there automatically because there were women in the house, and there was nobody over there. And I went and asked the only other female that was on the top floor, on the second floor with us, if she had gotten up, because she was sitting in another room. And she's like, "No, I've been right here." And so my cousin saw a full body apparition of a woman. A couple of things that I saw in there, I don't know if y'all have ever experienced this or not, but what looks like sparkler, like a sparkler in the dark.
Yeah,
I saw that 2 or 3 times there with my own eyes. We had some REM pod activity. Lots of different claims there. Disembodied voices.
That's a trippy thing. The sparkler in the dark. I love the way you said that. I've seen it. You've seen it too, Steve?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
I saw it in the woods once, which is even, because you think it's on fire, or you think it's just something. What's reflecting? Right. Is it wet? Leaves moving or something like that. But man, when you realize it's just that, and then it just fizzes out. It's almost like something's trying to manifest, or wants to manifest, or maybe doesn't even know it's manifesting, and oops, you saw me. We don't know. We keep thinking, like I said, that's why the legs and the feet and the heads and stuff just get me so much, because I'm thinking, are you just walking along and all of a sudden you don't realize part of you showing? Or do you even realize part of you? You see what I mean? We got to ask these questions, because it seems like I've had so many people over the years say, ghosts can't do that. Ghosts don't do that. Ghosts would never do that. And a ghost can't hurt you. Yeah. And I'm like, yes to all 4 of those, because yes, they can. And what do you can't put a broad brush on something like this, because like the show Ghosts, and now there's like several different ones in each, they're both the BBC and the American. They're not exactly the same. And they have these different talents, like we were saying. What if that is the way it is with ghosts? Like, not just they can't do it or they haven't figured it out yet. Like, they can do some common things. But because of their consciousness and where it is, that's where they got stopped. and your consciousness doesn't stop developing. So you're left with what you stopped with. I know this is a terrible way to describe it, but do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, I've only got this far, in my consciousness, my understanding, what I believe, my mood, my vibration, my karma, all of this, and everything just stops. And I wonder so much what causes one to stay and circle their car at the junkyard for the rest of life because the car is the only thing that looks familiar to them and they're trying to figure it out and just repeating. Or like these Roman soldiers that are still marching down that street. We all know the story of the whole regiment. He could smell them. He was so close to them, he could see that they needed a shave and they were weary from walking and, could smell the sweat. You see the hair on their legs. It's an incredible thing to see that doesn't sound to me like a recording in time.
Right.
Because I don't think you would smell that.
I think in those instances, I lean more towards the time slip. That you're having some sort of time slip and you're a ghost to them. Yeah.
I agree. Wow. There's so many. There's that damn onion, Steve.
Yeah. And those soldiers, they couldn't break formation or they'd be punished. Later, they're probably like, did you see that weird guy standing over to the side that we marched by there? What was that all about?
Yeah, what was he wearing?
Yeah, we're ghosts to them, like you said. That's crazy.
And Palmer's asking, does Tennessee have a Scottish gathering annually? They do.
I know Alabama does.
Smokies, they have the Highland Games up there. I'm not sure what time of year it is, but it's awesome.
And Erin, Tennessee has an Irish gathering because the Irish settled Erin, Tennessee.
There you go. I know I've been to the Scottish Festival in Alabama quite a few times. Best story I got about that is the 95-year-old guy in the wheelchair that was wearing a kilt and nothing else. Smiled all day long, hanging out at the ice cream.
Somebody asked him, what do you wear under your kilt?
Well, on a good day, lipstick, right? He's trying to get me to say
I was wondering if you knew the punchline.
Yeah, he's trying to get. I told my brother that at his daughter's wedding, everybody was wearing kilt. We have a little Scottish in us too. Anyway, he was all nervous and everything, and I told him, I said, well, you're in good hands with Sean. You're in good standing with Sean Connery today. And he's like, yeah. He goes, he wouldn't like my knees or something like that, or he said something quippy. But I could see. I said, your knees are actually shaking. I said, you got to get out there and dance with your daughter. I said, here, take this with you. And I said, what does Sean Connery say? When people ask him, what do you wear under your kilt? And he goes, don't do it. I said, on a good day, lipstick, my brother. Now go dance with your daughter. And he just busted out laughing. He goes, at my daughter's wedding. And I said, I'm a redhead, But anyway, he danced with his daughter. He wasn't nervous anymore, so it worked. There you go. But yeah, Scottish festivals, absolutely. Some of them would be cool. Stay away from the haggis.
Yeah.
Try it at least once.
Oh, God, so gross. All right, kiddos, we've got, let's see here. Let me find this again. All right. Yeah, absolutely beautiful. That staircase took my breath away. I had more pictures, but like I said, I lost them. I did my best I could for you guys. Now, how about this one? It seems an awful lot like a Bigfoot Sasquatch. What do you think?
So back in my research of the Tennessee Wild Man, they didn't have the term Bigfoot. They just called them wild men because that's what they look like to them, just wild, hairy men. And the reports go back in the newspapers in Tennessee a long, long way back. The first reports are back in the early 1800s that you start hearing the Tennessee Wild Man. And I've got a newspaper clipping right here that I want to read.
Please, Joe. It
was from the early 1800s in McNairy County, 1871 actually, McNairy County, which is in southwest Tennessee. And this is a quote. We learned that between Sabi and Cranesville, on what is called Piney in McNairy County, Tennessee, a strange and frightful being has been observed for several weeks. He is said to be 7 feet high and possessed of great muscular power. His eyes are unusually large and fiery red. His hair hangs in a tangle and matted mess below his waist, and his beard reaches below his middle. His entire body is covered with hair, and his whole aspect is most frightful. He shuns the sight of them, but approaches with wild and horrid screams of delight every woman who is unaccompanied by a man. He sometimes, with great caution, approaches houses and should be And should he see a man, he runs away with astonishing swiftness, leaping the tallest fences with the ease of a deer, defying alike the pursuit of men and dogs. He has frightened several women by attempting to carry them off, as well as by his horrid aspect, and the whole country around Sabi is in consternation. The citizens are now scouring the woods and determined either to capture or drive off this monster. So they're basically reporting and warning people in the newspaper.
Yeah, that
if you're a woman, don't go out by yourself without a man, because the Tennessee wild man in this area might come and try to carry you off.
Jiminy
And this
Christmas.
is back in the 1800s. Yeah.
Oh,
and the
man.
Tennessee wild man, there are lots of reports of wild men, throughout the United States, and throughout Tennessee. But they just kind of took, what I love about this newspaper article is they just kind of took it as the Tennessee wild man is real. We're just trying to warn people, women and children.
There's that one you're
Wear
talking about.
comfortable
There's
shoes.
another one up around Elizabethton. There's several different places where they've had a Tennessee wild man. And the thing that was unusual about the Tennessee ones to me that you don't hear in the regular Bigfoot sightings, they always talked about him having a beard. And one, they saw it, and then years later, when they saw it, they thought it was the same one, but its beard was longer and whiter. So it was aging, whatever it was. But fascinating story. I did a video about that for a channel I'm associated with called Monster Madness. In fact, I played the replay of it last night on 13 past midnight. So, and I closed it out with Rocky Top by the Osmond Brothers.
That was good, by the way. That was really good.
Yeah, you were there last night, weren't you? So I forgot.
Yeah, and it was so cool when I was looking up on Eric's list. I said, "Oh, good, we're going to talk about it." That's incredible. But like Sir Bowden said here, they said they're known to be taking women. I don't know if you ever heard me tell the story about my grandmother, who's Native American. She was teaching me herbs in the woods and how to collect sassafras leaves and different plants and things. And then she was talking about the things that are in the woods that we don't talk about.
Yeah.
She always kept anything that was like a Sasquatch or something like that. He said there's caretakers, protectors, and then there's the evil ones. Mm-hmm. Just like with people. And the woods is theirs, and you get little pieces of it here and there, much like a ghost. My relatives, they just say little pieces of things, and 10 years later you find out what the hell they were trying to say. And she did hold me by, when she was really thoughtful about it, not just telling little things here and there. She reached down and put her hands on my shoulders and says, when you stay on the path, if you get this feeling, don't push through it, go back. No matter where you're going, go back. Don't keep going. I just don't want them to take you with them. And it was ended there. Yeah. It was no, where are they going to take me? How long will I be gone? None of those questions were answered. It was just that, and that was it. You just did it, Yeah. So that really goes in with a lot of this, and I don't know if you ever... In Cabin 22, I put that whole thing in there about how there's a couple of different kinds, and there are some that have this ability to move in and out of the portals, or time slips, or whatever you want to call it, dimensions, and they've been doing it. And there's some that decide to stay here, and then others that come back when they really need it. And that was kind of the stories I was hearing from Native Americans, and also living in a balance with them, up into the point of even putting out supplies and stuff around your barrier. Here, take this, an offering. It's the same thing. Planting fruit trees and things like that. So many of that stuff is being done. And I think it's more in the South has that understanding more than in some of the, obviously more city-fied places. Right. I think the South still has a lot of that that kind of care, and it's not just having the knowledge, because a lot of people have the knowledge and still don't give a shit. But it's like a care and a heart to it. Protecting nature, the parks and things like that. Like Donnie was saying too, there's a lot of battlefields being torn up in, golf courses or developments or something. Right. I heard they were going to try to dig up Shiloh. I can remember 3 years ago, they were saying that they were trying to sell it off and save Shiloh, and a bunch of people got together and said, don't touch it. It's, I mean, Native Americans have their sacred grounds, and Americans have theirs, and every country has theirs, and we need to preserve this history,
Right.
Yeah,
But when it comes to Sasquatch, I really think it's, whether it's Yeti or Wild Man or any of these things, it's just we've always treated it just like the bear or the deer or the squirrels or anything else.
Yeah.
You live with the earth. You don't live on it. You live with it in a balance. So
it's funny that Steve had this topic last night. Well, my show that I have coming out this week, my podcast that I have coming out this week, is actually with Dr. Russell Jones, who does a lot of his new book is called The Appalachian Bigfoot, and he does a lot of his research in
okay, you cut out a second. Could you just start that sentence again? I'm sorry, Eric. You just kind of froze for a second.
Dr. Russell Jones,
Okay.
he just wrote a book, The Appalachian Bigfoot, that just came out, and he's on the same publisher as Steve, Beyond the Fray Publishing, but he's my guest this week on my show, which comes out Wednesday, and he does a lot of research in the West Virginia, Ohio part of the Appalachian Mountains, and he's of the same opinion that this is a flesh and blood creature, and it's just there's such a small population of them that you won't find a carcass. Like you'd be hard pressed to go to East Tennessee and find a bear carcass, let alone.
Yeah, I was talking about that the other night. I've been out in the woods basically my whole life, for a lot of the time. I've never seen anything above a small animal. One time, I found a deer carcass, and it was fresh. It was somebody that was hunting out of season and had tossed the carcass in the woods.
Yeah.
Get rid of. But yeah, you don't run across, like I said, bear, deer, maybe a squirrel or a bird or something. But just because there's no Bigfoot carcass doesn't mean Bigfoot doesn't exist.
That's 100% true. I mean, I've been all the time. I've been in the woods too.
Maybe if they're like us, maybe they bury their dead, or there's even some conjecture that they eat their dead. So who knows? I mean,
or drag them right back through the portal.
Yeah.
Well, and the way that Dr. Jones put it is that if there's a small population, and they live as long as other primates, 50 to 80 years, well, you're only going to have maybe less than 100 in the whole United States that die every year.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a small population, and that might be in the Appalachian Mountains, that might be only 10 of them or something.
They're smart enough. They stay in the parts of the mountains where people
Right.
don't normally go at all.
Right. Yeah, and he attributes the different types of. Somebody had commented about Sasquatch being that big, much bigger than the wild man, and his kind of take on that was that when you had the Bering Land Bridge, you have a certain type of Bigfoot that came over on that land bridge that is in the Pacific Northwest, out there where Steve is, and so you're going to have one type of kind of species, and they're going to have the redheaded stepchildren, here in Tennessee. They're going to be different because they're suited to different environments like other animals.
Right.
Yeah, I totally stand in agreement with that.
Even squirrels are different in different places.
Some places you have black squirrels, like in East Tennessee, you have flying squirrels.
Yeah. Those ones that you probably have them in the Tennessee too. The northern fox squirrels. Have you ever seen those? The redheaded one with the white blaze down the nose, and they're big. I don't know why they're called squirrels. They look like, beaver, like groundhogs or something, more than anything else. But you never see anything like that. People forget that just a couple 100 miles changes everything. It really does, and it things are the same yet they're different. It's an amazing thing to do. I've been lucky enough to be in several different states, not all of them. I'd love to go way west and see how that is. Montana and California and Northern California more than anything. I can imagine it's gorgeous, but there's definite difference between big city up north and down south and easy living. And I'll never forget that poor guy. I must have waved 8 years at this guy sitting on a porch. I have no clue who, but I waved to him every morning on the way to work. Halfway to my job, he'd just sit on the porch and was waving to everybody, and people waved back, and it's just wonderful. But I have seen some wild and crazy things in Alabama. But I've seen some wild and crazy things in New Jersey too. They just weren't cryptids. They were other things. They're actual human species.
Well, the BFRO, the Bigfoot Field Research Organization, They started collecting stories in Tennessee of the wild man and Bigfoot back in 1974. And so they've been collecting stories in modern day times since then. The last known sighting of the wild man, as described, was about 20 years ago. And it was two hunters. I don't think they were hunters. I think they were hikers. And they were out hiking in a park in East Tennessee around Elizabethton in Watauga Cliffs Park. And it scared them enough. This guy was with his cousin, and the beast kind of split them up, and they ran kind of different ways, and one of them hid behind a tree, and they finally made their way out of the park. And you can actually look up this news interview from out that way with this guy. They took him back. I think it was the 20th anniversary or 10th anniversary or something. After it happened, he wouldn't go past the parking lot to do the interview. They wanted him to go actually, where he saw it. He had never been back in that park since. It scared him and his cousin so bad.
And then just across the mountains in North Carolina, they've got a Bigfoot-like creature, that wild man over there. They call it Nobby. That was seen. I don't remember when it was first sighted, but it was seen again. Like it returned. I want to say like in the 70s or something like that. The late 70s, they've had some more sightings of it. So I think they're all over those mountains there. They're just, like I said earlier, they're smart enough to know to stay back. There's places in the Smokies you can go that I doubt any human has ever set foot in some of those places, just because it's so remote and so rugged and covers a lot of land. I mean, and I always like to use this as an example. Eric Rudolph, when he was on the run from the FBI, he hid out in Nantahala National Forest for about 5 or 6 years. Yeah. So if a guy with no real wood lore experience or anything, didn't know what he was doing, can manage to stay hid that long, imagine how well something could conceal itself that was raised in those woods and knows those woods like the back of its hand. You'd never see it if it didn't want you to.
And especially to be kind of camouflaged, with a lot of fur and that type stuff, kind of its own ghillie suit, if you will. It can easily hide in bushes, and you'd walk right past it and never know it was there.
Yep.
Absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. I was also picking up in the chat, seeing Donnie was asking something about, does Bigfoot follow ley lines, do you think? Is there more sightings like that? Is it something like, like a haunting would be, or something like that? I've heard a lot where they're getting a lot of UFO sightings at the same time as a Bigfoot too.
I think in some places where there's lots of activity like that, I think there's more Bigfoot sightings, but they typically stay in the woods. I mean, your clusters of Bigfoot are going to be where your clusters of missing people are with the missing person mysteries, like in the national parks and stuff. That's where your clusters of
it's true.
Those
it's
sightings
really
can be
true.
seen. And I've heard somebody theorize that that if they are seen in more populated areas, that maybe they're on the move for mating reasons or whatever, going from one forested area to another, but they're only briefly seen in some more populated areas.
Wow. I don't know if we'll ever uncover the mystery. I'll still go with, I think, again, broad brush. Some of these things I think they're all connected, obviously, just like we are. But, looking at them is, and I don't mean anything mean by this, but if you're looking at the differential, well, maybe I shouldn't say it, but if you look at the differential in this, it's like going to your local Walmart. Everybody's different. Everybody looks different. Everybody's, some people are short and, chubby, and some people are just, short, and some people are really big. And I don't think it makes them that they're that much different. I'm more along the lines of with Steve, and also reading in the chat here, that just squirrels in different places, the differential and the hair and how, the coloring and stuff like that. So, again, it just looks to me like somebody who's trying to adapt in this ever-changing world and trying to survive and doesn't want to be extinct,
Yeah, just adapting to their environment and slowly evolving to that environment.
With everything going on, can you blame them? I'd stay in too.
I would too.
Right.
I would too.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, Cisco,
you got to go, honey?
No, but I don't want, well, I do in a few minutes, but I don't want to take anything away from Eric, but I want you to tell Eric your story about the baby Bigfoot that you saw, and I'd like to get his take on that.
I don't know. Had you ever heard my baby Bigfoot?
I don't think so.
Okay, so I'm driving in the car. We're going Tony, Alabama. So Tony, Alabama, pretty much the way I was driving parallel with the Tennessee line, because we're right there. I mean, I could stand in my front porch and spit into Tennessee. That's how close we were. So it's cornfields both sides. Know the road well. I know I got 20 miles of cornfield and farm, and when I pass the goats, I'm almost home. So I'm riding.
That's the way people give directions out in the country, too.
That cat tied to the tree down there by the barn.
I said, take a right at the horses and a left at the goats, and you'll be at my house. So, and by God, it got them there, too. So you're going, and you know how, like, when you're driving in a situation like that, you're waiting for something to come out of the corn. A group of kids chasing each other, a group of deer, a tractor, farm equipment. You know, I mean, you can't just... And I'm telling you, they take it right to the edge of the road, you know, on one of those roads. And it was getting to be about dusk, and my son was closest to the cornfield. He's in the passenger seat. And I start getting... I'm just an empath, and I'm starting to feel this sadness and this longing. So much so, I thought I drove through a bad car accident site. Sometimes I'll feel that, like something really bad, terrible car accident and stuff where somebody lingered, and I'll feel that way. But it's getting worse. It's not like driving through it. It's coming. I'm coming into something is how I'm feeling it. And then all of a sudden, I see this break in the corn, and you see a figure there. And it just like comes out of the corn and kind of stands right. Corn's still on both sides, but I can see him now. His head was probably didn't reach the top of the passenger window. Okay, and I'm in like a little Honda Accord, so he wasn't very tall. And as I'm going by, I'm doing one of these, you know, and I see him. I lock eyes with him, and it was very much like the first picture here. Let me see if I can get that back one more time so you can see what I mean. Do you see how the one on the left here, the one where it says Tennessee above his face? Do you see how his face doesn't have any hair and it looks kind of leathery? Yeah. It was very much like that, but more wrinkly, more like an elephant, but shiny like this. I know that sounds funny. And he had one great big bottom lip, like he was pouting, but I mean big, like this. And he's just standing there like that and watches as we go by. He never turned his head as far as I know. But I'm getting a panic because I've got my son is between me and it. Right. And then I think he's lost. He's scared. He's afraid. Oh my God, where's his mother? So I'm thinking I have to be and keep going. I don't have time to take out flip phone cameras, nothing. It's get the hell out of there, beat feet. And I hit gas and I pulled off. And as I pulled away from it, the adrenaline even still going, I could still feel the sadness and that weight pulling. I don't know what was going on with that. I don't know. It made me stop and think, Eric, that they have some kind of an ability beyond telepathic, almost like to send out this signal. Do you see what I mean? To find each other, maybe. And I kind of went through that, like I'm scared and I'm panicked and I'm going to stand right here. You come find me, kind of thing. Right. Mm-hmm. You know, but that was my very
I like to
dark.
think of it as like, what if he walked through a portal? You know, the mom Bigfoot looked away and he stepped through a portal and was gone. And she had to come through the portal and get him to come back.
Incredible.
And, and he was knew enough just to sit there and wait for her, but he was sad about it.
How about that?
Well, and also, I mean, you know, a lot of people want to come back and say, a lot of skeptics want to come back and say, well, you just misidentified something. Well, there's no misidentifying that. I mean, like, you saw this thing coming, you watched it as you went by. Like, there's no misidentification. That's not a bear. That's not.
No, it wasn't anything like that, and it wasn't a gorilla. It wasn't, and it was just, it was so sad, and it was just, and it wasn't acting frightened. It was just like it was stalled, like it was like Steve said, almost walked through a thing and just stunned it where it was, kind of thing, and sent out this signal of this. The word I'm looking for, what's the word I'm looking that dolphins and them have? Like
sonar.
Like a sonar, that's it. Yeah, I was thinking it's not radar, it's more like a sonar kind of thing. And it's almost
and then
like
maybe the mom said back to it, sit there and wait, I'm on my way.
Right. It's possible, but I went through something, and my son felt it too. But then again, everything just messes up with adrenaline because everything just reprocesses its stuff real fast and, fight or flight,
Well, and there
Crazy.
are a lot of animals that give out infrasound. And there are people doing studies into this with Bigfoot in particular, but even elephants use infrasound that we can't hear. They vibrate their chest in this low rumble that can be heard for miles and miles, but it's just not within our range of hearing.
That would be a Big 10-4, Blue. Exactly where it was on Elkwood Section Road in Alabama. Yes, dear. That's exactly where it was. And he says he's getting reports of that area, so there you go. And that's where I saw the duck-billed platypus rabbit thing. That was probably more frightening than the damn little Bigfoot, that's for sure. But isn't that something?
Give out a quick shout out to Casual Conversation with G&A.
Hey, Casual.
A couple of great young ladies there that have a good paranormal show. I'm going to be a guest on there soon. Go check them out and subscribe to them.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out.
Awesome. And Sir Bowden is saying, I'm feeling... Wait a minute, he's itching something. I better read
Susan
it first.
Woodcarver's here too. Hey, Susan. Yeah, I streamed live for a few minutes from Sasquatch. I was having trouble with my equipment there. I'm going to have to get a better streaming rig for next time. But yeah, I had a lot of fun there. Met a lot of fans. Got some cool merchandise, including the shirt I got on. It's got Bigfoot on it. It says, "Not all who wander are lost."
There you go. That is
a Tolkien
nice
quote, but I like to apply that to some missing persons cases. Sometimes people. Not all those who wander are lost, and not all those who are lost disappeared. Some people choose to disappear. So,
yep. And Be Kind is agreeing with us too. I'm sorry, Steve. I didn't mean to cut you off. She's agreeing with you too. Good point, Steve. Mom probably sent out the message that she was coming, and that's it. I think I think it's true. I mean, come on, twins have a connection. We've at least pointed that out.
And he hears the mom yell through the sonar, "Hey, what are you doing? Where'd you go? Sit down and wait for me. I'll be right there. Boy, you're in trouble." And that's why the lips sticking out like, "Oh man, I got caught." Yeah. That's something else. But yep, everybody seems to be in agreement. And Blue Crossroads says he gets a lot of DM reports in that area. So, I mean, I never doubted it for a minute. I'm more worried about the thing than anything else. But, you never know. Eric, I'm going to have to run. I've got to set up for my show that starts in 45 minutes. I've been doing stuff here in the background. If you saw my screen flash and stuff, that's
I think we're going to have Eric on again.
Yeah, we need to have Eric for part 2, definitely, in this, because we're just scratching the surface here. There's so much good stuff in Tennessee. And it's like he was saying, in those little communities, I don't think there's a little community or small town that I've been in Tennessee that didn't have a crybaby bridge, that didn't have a white lady, that didn't have a hitchhiking ghost, that didn't have a haunted graveyard or something. It's just
the train tracks, all of those.
And in that area, they don't really even consider it supernatural. It's just everyday stuff. I mean, my granny on my mom's side, they were part of the spiritualism movement. They held seances and did table tapping and Ouija boards, and she told fortunes and stuff. There was nothing to them. Somebody dies, you cover the mirror so their ghost doesn't get trapped. You paint your porch paint blue. She used to put garlic in the keyholes, the old like skeleton keyholes. That was to keep witches from coming through the keyhole. But she also considered herself a witch. She called herself a gypsy witch, but nowadays they call her either a kitchen witch or a granny witch. Is what they referred to them in Appalachia. But it was just everything to them. I mean, it wasn't supernatural. It's just the way things were. Just stuff you didn't know or understand. What you showing us there, Cisco?
You try to get it so you can see it, but it says Gypsy Soul on it.
Okay, I see it now.
The dream catcher. So it's Indian, native. It was like it just fit me perfect.
But I'm going to jet. Everybody,
but I thought of your grandma when I bought it too.
That's awesome. I don't know where the gypsy part came in. Somewhere on that side of the family. They
probably just a traveler.
Romania or somewhere like that. But everybody join me after this show. Whenever it's over, come on over
13 past midnight.
See you later, Steve.
Eric, always a pleasure. Look forward to it.
It's been wonderful, darling.
We'll do a part 2 because I'd love to go over some more of this with
Absolutely. We're having Eric back.
All my folks in the chat, thank you. And I'll see you later. See you a little farther on down the trail. Love each and every one.
Love you, honey.
Thanks,
Missing Person and Mysteries 2, the Spirited Away series. Go watch it. Love you, Steve.
Indeed. Goodbye. Thanks.
Bye, honey. Okay, he's out. Do you want to do that, Eric? Do you want to pick one more of the ones we got, and then we'll have you back in a couple weeks? Would you be willing to do that?
Yeah, we can do
Because
that.
you've obviously got more stories and more stuff that you can tell
I got
us.
plenty. I'm working on a book that's going to be chock full.
I think it's wonderful,
Yeah.
but you don't want to give all your good stuff away either. But I'd love to have you back because you and
Yeah,
Steve had
I'd
so
love to
much
come back.
fun, in a couple weeks and do that. So out of all the ones you said, which one do you want to leave us with that I have here? We've got quite a few.
Let's do Old Fayetteville Hospital.
Okay, let me see if I can find that real quick. I can't wait to hear about this one. Don't say anything because I want to hear about it next time. I got to hear that story. And then I have one for you that's in a local park that kind of similar. Okay, hang on. Oh, and I have no idea the Wampus Cat. That's pretty cool. Let me see here. Okay, Old Fayetteville Hospital. Here we are.
Old Fayetteville Hospital. So this it operated from the 1960s until 2001 as a hospital.
Okay.
And they added on to it. It started out with one wing. And before that, sitting on that same property was a college called Bryson College that operated for about 10 years, a very short-lived college. And then the hospital came in and bought that land and tore the college down and started building this hospital.
Okay.
And so with it being such a recent closure, you have a lot of people in the community around Fayetteville, Tennessee it was also called Lincoln County Hospital. But you have a lot of people in that community who are still connected. Either they were born there, now they're grown, or, they know somebody who died there. Mm-hmm. And so it's this hospital still so wrapped up in the culture and the folklore of this town because so many people have connection to it. But they, not only the history of the property, with the history of the property, they believe that there are 2 frat boys who died at the college during a hazing, or I don't guess it was hazing. I guess they were trying to join a fraternity, and they got killed, and their spirits have been reported in the hospital.
Oh,
and when the
gosh.
hospital's in operation,
I'm sorry,
yeah,
but
both of them
together, both of the oh my gosh.
Yeah, both
Are
of them together.
are they coming up together? Are they showing up together? Like they're okay. This is my question. I have noticed in many cases that ghosts can be in the same house and not be aware of each other. Are they obviously aware of each other, like they are actually together?
They are. Yeah.
Wow.
They show up together a lot, and they've been seen individually as well. And they're dressed in like the like period wear of the times back in the 1920s, that era. Of like guys going to college. With the sweater vest and all that type of stuff. But yeah, they show up together and separate. Have been reported both.
Oh man, I don't know why that staggers me, but it does. It's just
The
another
interesting
thing to
thing-
put, little information bits,
One of the things that you hardly ever hear about an operating hospital is that a lot of the nurses who used to work at this hospital reported the angel of death. That the angel of death would be seen going into patient rooms, and then those patients would pass away. And they always said this angel of death that they would see in this shadow form was always stalking the dying people in the hospital. And this is from nurses, still alive that worked there and saw this while they worked there.
There's
Lots
so
of
many
interesting
accounts
things
of that. There's so many accounts of that, though, Eric. I mean, really. There was one that got me that was similar. It was also in a hospital. The short version is that this one little girl was being stalked very much. The mom was calling it that as well. And she was fighting it, and it was touch and go. And she would go into this little prayer room. And right when her daughter was very close to really touch and go, she could take her. She had to have the IV and stuff, but when kids are even still sick, she could take the beds, or you have the little chairs you could push that almost like a bed. She had one of those, and she looked up this morning. She looks up, and in the window she could see what she saw coming in the room the night before, standing outside the door that had one of those glass windows, much like this picture here. And she thought to herself, well, why doesn't it come in? And something clicked in her head, and she said, this room is full of prayer. She went and got her daughter and slept that night in the chair with her in that prayer room. And the daughter pulled through the next morning. She was great.
Wow.
And it was just that mom thinking, I'm protected by this light. I need to bring her in here. And I don't know why she just didn't think to bring that. You know what I mean? But it was, again, one of those things that was an act of faith or an act of intent that seemed to work. Incredible. Go ahead.
Yeah, and
honey.
the mom trying to do anything she could to save her kid.
Yeah. Just incredible.
One of the interesting things, you hear a lot about orbs, and people get pictures of what they call orbs or dust or whatever. The interesting thing about the orbs in here that people see with their eyes but also catch pictures is they're different colored orbs. They're not just the white light. They get them in all different colors in this hospital. That's incredible. Yeah.
What do you think about that? What is your take that, in your gathered information, your theories, what do you think about the different colors? We were just talking about this on the show a couple of days ago.
I'm not a big orb person.
Okay. What about the colors?
I think it's just a different level of energy. It's like different, the hotter a fire is, it changes colors, through all the different colors. And I think the orbs are the same way. It's just a different level of energy.
Great way of putting it. I love the fire analogy. That's a great one that we can use in the future, because I'm kind of looking into that, because I've found like different colored mists, that you would call, and also the different colored orbs. So like you, when I first started out, I'm not big on orbs, especially in videos or pictures, because you don't know what's going on, the dust and the bugs and the whole thing, and even a bug in front of a CCTV real close up can look like something, but in real life, when you see it.
Yeah. And I've seen orbs in real life with my own eyes. And I saw a really big, bright one it looked like a flashlight in the corner of the room.
Wow.
It was that bright and that big. Yeah.
Have you ever seen the one that looks like it's got faces, or no? Have you ever seen those?
I have not with my own eyes.
Okay.
I've seen pictures, but like you're saying, you can't never tell what the conditions were and that type of stuff. I have seen a few pictures of orbs that I believe are definitely a true orb, because it's emitting its own light. It's not, that normal stuff that you see, but it's actually emitting its own light.
It's almost got like little moving. It's almost like looking. Okay. If anybody's ever seen those little kid balls, and they're little plastic clear balls, but they almost have like a glitter in them with a solution, like a slimy solution.
It's like a swirling
slow. Yeah. That's if you spin that stuff around, that's what real orbs look like.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost has a substance inside encased in this, and you can see it undulating and moving. It's wild.
Old Fayetteville Hospital, Lincoln County Hospital, Ghost Adventures actually did an episode there back in 2015 that people can go watch. What I find disconcerting is that somebody in the know told me that when they came in there, they had a script, and they really didn't. They really didn't report the real history of the hospital or some of the real hauntings. They kind of made up their own story and didn't really want to listen to the people that really knew the history and had gone in there and investigated. So
that's number 6.
If you go watch,
that's number 6 that I've heard about similar things with that same group. Yep, go ahead.
So go watch Ghost Adventures at your own peril. It's probably
at your own peril.
Yeah, probably not true. I don't know. I said something about them getting possessed. The other night I was on another live stream as a guest, and I said something about them being possessed, and all of a sudden my internet went out, so I won't go too far.
Be careful. That's like Steve and the Black Eyed Kids, honey. Every time he talks about it, I take all my vases off the table and I look around for pictures that I really want to keep. It's weird. It's so weird. And I almost wonder if it's not just other spirits. Do you ever wonder that, if it's just not other spirits going, okay, now's a good time to scare her and just knock something over. She's going to blame this. I'd be having fun like that if I couldn't do something else, Well,
I think it's because they know that you're going to notice it, and you're going to put it in this context of paranormal. And so, you're not just going to blow it off like we do a lot of things,
Yeah.
There's a
frustrating.
Few other interesting reports from this hospital. And if you want to see video and hear EVPs, a really good website is EVP Paranormal. Okay. They're a group out of Fayetteville, Tennessee. Okay. And Elk Valley Paranormal. They're on Facebook too, but you can go there and listen to some of the EVP, see some of the pictures. A couple of the pictures they got there is that this man they call the Creeper, which is very similar to the famous Creeper from Waverly Hills. It's a shadow figure that shows up in pictures. It showed up in many pictures. It kind of creeps around, kind of lurking in the shadows, poking his head out of doors, that type thing. They captured a lot of EVPs there. They have a little girl spirit named Mary, who likes to hold hands with the biggest, toughest guy in the group, and she'll follow you around. And she hangs out kind of in the neonatal labor and delivery ward, but she'll pick she said that she picks the biggest, strongest guy out of the group, and she'll actually go up and hold their hand. and walk around
Now,
with you.
answer me this if you know. Do you know if anybody's had conversations with this little girl?
They have, and there's 2 other spirits that claim to be Mary that they know is not Mary. And that
They're
is
just getting the attention.
they think it's something just trying to act like Mary.
Right.
But specifically, EVP Paranormal, Elk Valley Paranormal, they specifically know that there is a little girl spirit. It's not somebody else trying to act like a little kid. But there are 2 other supposed Marys they think are other spirits that are trying to act like this little girl. Yeah.
Right. Because I'm putting out a little experiment too at the same time. I'm hearing a lot of children spirits that were once ghosts and stuck, crossing over, and then coming back to help others cross. And not just in the same spot. So, but it's a lot of kids. I mean, these are multiple. I mean, it's up into the 25, 30s now.
Wow.
And I'm not even really digging. It's not like I'm going out there and looking in Reddit for, it's coming to me organically.
Yeah.
And I keep hearing this. And I'm like, that's amazing. They just recently got a lot of the kids out of something I wanted to do. Was definitely my bucket list, trying to get, mediums and everything that were strong together to go into Gettysburg Orphanage to get the kids out of there, because there was so many negative entities holding them back, the same ones that held them back in life, holding them back in death. And KSPS went over there at the right time with the right intent. It just slipped in and walked out with about 6 of them.
Yeah.
And it blows my mind. It's like the right time, the right timing. Something's going on, Eric. It's amazing.
There's a lady that I talked to on my show named Natalie Fowler, and she wrote a great book. Are you familiar with her?
I know the name. I couldn't tell you what she does, but I've heard the name.
She's a medium, and she's written a couple of books, but she comes at the mediumship from a investigative standpoint.
Okay.
And one of her things that she does is goes in, and if the spirits want help crossing over, then as a medium, she helps them do that.
Awesome.
And she has an awesome book called The Spirit's Way Home. And I don't do a whole lot of psychics on my show because you can kind of get into the weeds with that. But she is a great lady to talk to, and I love that you just reminded me of that, like helping them cross over. She does a lot of that, and that's her main focus as a medium.
Perfect.
Is not reading people. It's not that type stuff. She does all that, but her main focus is to go in and help spirits.
I think that there's a cleanup going on. And I know that's a lousy way to put it, but I just really think that there's a sense of urgency right now. And I don't know what it is, but I'm getting that kind of static electricity feel. I've had it for a couple of years. And it's, for a while, it felt like the world was making a fist and was just going to pop. And then all of a sudden it started to ease up. And it's funny to say to people right now in these times that things are easing up, but there's been a release. And now it's a different kind of energy. And now I'm seeing all this almost like something broke and the spirits can do more. Or we're connected more so they can do more with that. With that combined energy, maybe. I don't know. It's a mystery. But I want to tell you this before I lose it. I think you'd find this very interesting. It was a message to you here from Blue, and the whole chat just disappeared. I've never had that happen before. Okay, there it is. It's back. All right. It was something about he wanted to set up. Okay, here it is. I have considered hosting a paranormal conference in the past. Perhaps I should revisit the idea and get with Eric Freeman for support. Blue Crossroads lives out there in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And a couple other people. So how can he contact you? You guys can talk. Frozen is out there. Quite a few people. And I know Steve is hoping to travel back that way, at least for a visit soon.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people out there.
I have been throwing around the idea of doing a History and Haunts Expo. And so I would love to definitely connect with you and talk about doing an expo. And I'm, as y'all have heard tonight, I'm huge into the history because I think we need to understand the history to understand the hauntings.
Yes.
And also give a voice and a name to these spirits and why they're there, and to continue to tell their story. And so that's, if I do some sort of paranormal expo like that, because we don't really have anything like that here in Middle Tennessee, especially, but I want to do it equal parts history. So have historians from a lot of locations like we've talked about tonight around Tennessee, and also have paranormal teams that investigate these places and have them up as
Absolutely
speakers.
wonderful.
And yeah, and just a big, and have the, open to the general public, but more so of a big networking event for different teams to find out about these different locations that let teams in, and just kind of a big networking event at the same time, not just, okay, well, you come set up a booth and the general public comes around and talks. No, I want time for everybody to mingle. And
I think that's an excellent idea. Gettysburg Bash is probably one of the best blueprints to go by, and you can talk to Steve and Pam Barry. I mean, I can introduce you to all these people. And when you go in there, it's huge. It's, conference. But they got a hotel involved, the Wyndham Hotel, so it gives people rates and stuff like that. So they could give you a little bit more of the blueprints. And also, I forget the guy's name, Jeff, who runs the New Jersey Expo out here. He started with a high school 2 years ago, and then just bam, has a VIP night, Amy Allen and, different people come in there to chip coffee and that kind of thing. So I really think that you need one in the South like that, too.
Yeah.
There's probably in Savannah for sure, and probably, Georgia, whatever. But talk to him. He's got also... He's got a great background. I'll let him tell you his background if you haven't read it already in chat, but I won't tell people's business. But I think that would be awesome. And you probably have a lot of wonderful help. Donnie's also interested. And again, everybody here, we're trying to get as many people to Waynesboro, Pennsylvania, which is 25 miles outside of Gettysburg, and about a spit and a holler from Antietam and Harper's Ferry and all that. And they're setting up. They're taking this time to get anybody who wants to gather there. They've already got a second Gettysburg Ghost Exchange building, so now they've got one in Gettysburg and one there. So it's all paranormal equipment and everything. That's what they deal with. And they've got a bus tour. They've got all the all the bells and whistles that you have to acquire to get to be able to do that. So it's really great. People are doing these things. So now's the time to jump on it and make that dream come true. And I highly recommend that you do it very much like they did at the Hoover House. They don't allow provoking or anything like that.
Yeah, no.
And they made an absolute... This place is actually it's like a beacon of light for the living and the dead. And the spirits are the people that collected everybody, really. And now they're collecting everybody now. And there's people in this chat that have been there where days before you're going, they know you're coming. And they're already there waiting for you.
Wow.
It's amazing. And, they'll say, well, they're coming soon, and that's who they'll tell. And they'll tell them who's coming. And then sure enough, those people book a room and here they come, and they say the hardest part about it is these people are coming for bed and breakfast and they've got dead relatives here that want to talk to them, so we got to see if they want a table tip or if they want to do this, or do you believe in ghosts or not. But they're working through all that. It's really interesting. I think it'd be great if you guys could get together. And I'll tell you, man, this has been so interesting, and I know we have it's made me kind of homesick for Alabama. And I was already, but I want to definitely get you back again because I know we've just scratched the surface. Tell us all the different places. Now, your new one is coming out.
So the new YouTube channel, so the podcast that I do, which I have a YouTube channel, but it's just audio for the podcast, but is the Unseen Paranormal Podcast. And you can find the podcast anywhere you found music or podcast, Apple, Spotify, all those places. Like I said, YouTube channel. The new YouTube channel is called Small Town Haunts and Legends. And the first series I'm going to do is going to be a series of Tennessee, like we've been talking about tonight, the Tennessee Haunts and Legends. And then I'll go into some other states and we'll do some other stuff like Kentucky and Georgia and do some of these other lesser known places. And they can email me. You can email me at unseendarkparanormal@gmail.com. unseendarkparanormal@gmail.com. And also, if you go to my website, unseenparanormalpodcast.com, I also sell paranormal merchandise that I make myself.
Oh,
so,
nice.
I got lots of t-shirts up there. Some are for the podcast. Others are just for fun. I've got lots of merch up there. Can coolers and t-shirts and things like that. So
very cool.
A lot going on, yeah. But the new channel is Small Town Haunts and Legends. It is up now with the preview video that you showed tonight. And that will be debuting. I'll be debuting videos on there starting in March. And the first one is going to be Carton Plantation. So
Nice, nice. Well, I'll tell you what, you're certainly informed. You can tell that you love it. And like I said in the beginning, I heard it in your voice when you were talking about it on the podcast.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that makes you stay. You link into it. I mean, we've all done it. I've had people, stop by and tell me how much, they can't stand my hand moving or something else that they're not going to listen. What I'm saying, if you can get 100 people to listen to your podcast that are really interested in what you have to say because you have heart, but I do understand that I do it myself with voices, and I can tell when somebody has nothing but bullshit in their voice.
Right. Right.
They're just phoning it in. But somebody who's really interested, you can hear it. And I think that's why so many people, like Steve and other people like Joel from Let's Read and stuff like that. He's, just the way his cadence where he drops.
Yeah.
You have that. And
Thank you.
The first time I listened to it, I was like, man, I like this. I really, really like this. And then you get good information and history and a story and a flow to it. So I highly recommend it. All of my mods are dropping your website links and everything else.
Thank you.
Is the book, before you go, tell us about your writing. When is that coming out, and when is the...
So the YouTube channel with the videos will start coming out in March. I'll put out a video or two a week. And the first 10 or so are probably going to be all Tennessee centered. And then I'll go on to some other states and do small town haunts and legends and pepper Tennessee back in there. The book is still in the works. It will be out later on this year. I'm looking for probably September for the book to come out. It's going to be called Small Town Haunts and Legends of Tennessee. And so the way I've got it structured is we start out with all the legends, and then we go into West Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, and then East Tennessee, and it's broken up by city. So
very cool.
You got a lot of the history in there, like I talked about tonight, and then also the hauntings. So
very nice, man. I certainly appreciate you coming on tonight. I've been looking forward to it. I know Steve dressed for the part. He looked just like, isn't that funny? And, I just love him so much, and I knew he was going to really enjoy being, I'm pretty sure he's homesick too. And like you told me today, you wouldn't pick another state to live in. You can't imagine, And it really is beautiful, guys, if you've never been there. Just standing on Lookout Mountain and looking out over everything and looking over it, going to Gatlinburg, the beauty, the people, the substance of the people and stuff too. I think it's so different. And if you're looking for a break and you want to get away from where you are, I highly recommend looking in the South and looking at Tennessee and Alabama and get a little bit of that home goodness, that you've been missing if you're in the city and stuff, because life is short and you might as well live it right, and they're living it right in Tennessee, aren't they? Yeah, it's really awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming in tonight.
Thank you so much.
Chat. Oh, God, it's been delightful. This is a wonderful, wonderful chat tonight, guys. Thank you so much for helping each other. I was amazed to see how many different squirrels we had. Blue, get with Eric. Donnie, get with Eric. I think you guys got something really great started here, and there's multiple other things, too, Eric. I'm sitting here, and I'm getting, downloads to hook you up with Brian from Ghost Quest. I think you guys would get along really well. I don't know if you know him, but I'll send you his link and just tell him that you know me. He's trying to do that database that we were talking about. Yeah. Where, United States wide, if there's a place and you could fill up Tennessee so easy for him. And then you put your links in there so you can connect with other people that are local. He's trying to do it that way. And you could probably use your brain on it. And you probably already have a lot of the stuff. And it might help you find some new stuff, too, for your book. So there you go. That's what we're all about here, paranormal hookups and that paranormal chain of caring and putting light back into the world. And it's been an amazing night. Thank you guys so much. We are going to get out of here. Oh, thank you, sweetie. Thank you so much. And we will get back together and hook up another date for you. Thank you for taking so much time. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Keep your feet under the covers and your closet door shut, because there are things that go bump in the night. Good night, everybody.